What are you doing?
Oh, good, you're here. Help me out. My GM had the audacity to not let me play a dragon, so it's payback time.
Ugh, why must you be such an amateur? Especially when we've got this book.
Battlezoo Ancestry's Dragons. That's not a tome of curses.
It's even better. This book turns dragons into a playable class in 5e or in Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Yeah, thanks for trying, but my GM is still gonna say no. Dragons are just way OP.
Except this one is actually balanced, all thanks to a ritual called the Lux Eterna, which changes the way dragons grow into their full power. Therefore, PC dragons who went through that ritual can level up alongside an adventuring party.
Oh wow, I could really play a dragon.
You could play 45 different types of dragons. There are Dream Dragons, eerie guardians of the Dreamland, Silver Dragons, righteous champions of justice, or Havoc Dragons, passionate artists.
Apocalypse Dragons, the spoilers and destroyers, bringer of pestilent plagues.
They each have their own lore, and over 200 feats to customize them.
Well, now I kind of feel bad about considering human sacrifice. Anyway, can I keep this?
Oh, you can keep this one. The hardcover comes with a free PDF, so I'm all good.
Whoa, thank you.
Nah, don't thank me. Just next time, maybe check out Roll for Combat's website. You know, instead of resorting to unspeakable horrors.
Alright. We started.
Welcome, everyone, to Roll for Combat Live. I'm Mark Seifter. I'm one of the co-creators of Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the director of game design at Roll for Combat. And here with me today are Stephen Glicker, who is the publisher at Roll for Combat and head honcho, and Jessica Redicop, who has written a lot of things for a bunch of different companies, including Paizo and Roll for Combat, and including the upcoming Leshy Dragon book that we are just about to release the PDF. Like, Stephen, maybe next week, maybe the week after that,
Probably
sometime
next
soon.
week. Probably next week.
Okay.
It's just about ready. It's like I just need 2 more pieces of art. And that's it. And it's ready. So, and look, I gave you a nice little, I had to think of a title for you, Jess.
Oh, yes. Well, I am extraordinary, so thank you.
Couldn't think of anything, so I was like, freelancer extraordinaire.
Mm-hmm.
Is
So
that
every week on this show, we discuss the topic at hand, as well as many other side topics or tangents that often involve like classic films or other things like that. And there's sometimes are mini topics at the beginning, and sometimes there aren't. I think this time there aren't. What
Not
do you think,
really.
Steve?
I mean,
Yeah.
I will say, obviously, the old do like, subscribe. If you have any questions, do ask them. If you do a super chat, we'll answer them right away. And if you do a large enough super chat, you can make Jess dance or show her dragon. Is it a dragon? I forgot. What is
It's a Furby.
Oh, you're thinking of
Bartholomew?
Bartholomew the Long Furby.
The long Furby. But couldn't he be a dragon? Is he a dragon Furby, or is he just a Furby?
It's a Darvaka.
No, he's just he is a Darvaka. That's canon. So the Darvaka are the non-OGL Pathfinder name for the Nightshades.
Mm.
So he is a creature from the plane of shadow.
Just like you? You had to think about that?
Well,
Come on.
That's a pointed question.
You had to think. You're like, am I from the plane of shadow?
But you didn't answer directly.
I
That's
know.
because Unseelie Fae from the Plane of Shadows cannot directly tell you a lie.
Oh my god.
So she just said that's a
What a-
pointed question, but she didn't
What
say yes
a
or no,
geek.
right?
I can't believe you're putting me on the spot like this, Stephen.
Oh, wow.
on live YouTube. This is
Well,
rude.
It's your show.
You treat your guests this way?
No,
That's kind
it's
of
your show.
disrespect.
I'm the guest.
It's your show,
It's
right?
your show.
That's true. That's true. This is canonically my show.
That's
So
right.
moving on, Stephen, have you heard that? I
Huh?
think it's on Crunchyroll. I've only watched like the first maybe 5 minutes of it, but there is a show on Crunchyroll that is stop motion using marionettes.
Keep going. There's a lot of those.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's more than one. There's a couple of them.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I've only heard of I was shown this one last night, and the first 5 minutes of it that I watched, which is all of it that I've watched so far because I was very tired yesterday.
Hmm.
I had just like gotten off of a flight. But according to my quick Google of it, it appears to be called Thunderbolt Fantasy, and
Oh my god. Yeah.
it is so. You've heard of this?
Well, do you know what Thunderbolts? So Thunderbolts was a marionette puppet show, kids TV show, like in the 60s and 70s. And that is
Oh.
where
No, I remember that. I remember
Team
that.
America was that
Yes.
the
And they
Trey
had
Parker. That was the
um
takeoff of that
yes.
show.
Yes, and
So
the Thunderbolts had like fighter ships.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then the Thunderbolts live action movie comes out May 2nd this year.
Oh.
And that could be good. It's got Florence
Yes.
Pugh in it. I like her a lot. She's really good. It's got Sebastian
Yes.
Stan. It's got Dave Harbour. It's got actually a fantastic cast. I mean, it is MCU, but this one could be good. This one
Oh,
actually.
you're right. Thunderbirds, not Thunderbolt.
Yeah, Thunderbirds. Right.
Someone in
Right.
chat
Thank you.
is correcting us.
Yeah, Thunderbirds. Okay, because I was
Now
like,
that you say Thunderbirds, I've heard
Thunderbirds.
of that old
Yeah.
show. I
Yeah.
hadn't heard of one called Thunderbolts, but I was like, this is
Yeah.
very similar to Thunderbirds. I wonder why.
Yeah, yeah.
oh, Thunderbolts anime. Let's see if that's.
Yeah, Thunderbolt Fantasy. Apparently it's Taiwanese Japanese, and it's so
Huh.
funny and dramatic.
Hmm.
The way that it opens up with like a fight scene between these two characters,
Hmm.
and they're so
I'm looking at it
dramatic
now.
about showing like
No, this one. I'm
their
not
foot
seeing.
motions while they're doing their sword combat against each other, but their little feet are the little marionette feet in little booties. It's so funny.
It's funny. We have this discussion. So before we play Pathfinder every week, we usually chat for a good half hour. And this comes up a lot because Seth is one of the players, and he's the lawyer, and he watches Crunchyroll like nonstop. Like that's all he
Mhm.
does. He watches anime nonstop.
Yeah.
And Jason also watches a lot of anime. And then there's John, who he can't get into anything animated because of the art style. And I mean anything. Like he can't watch, unless it's ultra hyper realistic, he can't watch animation. Forget about anime. He just doesn't even watch animation. So he won't even watch things like Cyberpunk, which was really good. You know, things like that.
Mhm.
I'm kind of in between. Like, as a kid, I loved Macross and I loved Global Suit Gundam. You know, Mobile Suit Gundam. I used to watch all that stuff, but I don't know. It's hard for me. I really do. I think I'm snobby now because I kind of need the animation to be pretty good.
Right, yeah.
Marionettes. The problem with marionettes for me is they're so wooden. No, seriously, but they are. They're like, you know, they're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like there's no
I mean-
emotion. It's just I can't get into it. I've tried, but I can't.
No, it's so funny.
Yeah. No, I am not aware of that. But did you see? Because I know you're a huge John Wick fan.
I
And
haven't seen it yet.
I told you because
I
I watched the Continental TV show because I got
Yeah.
I got a Peacock for like a year. It's actually pretty cheap if you get it for a full year. That show is terrible. Like it is actually terrible. And I was like,
Oh my
wow,
God.
this show is really bad. And it's only 3 episodes, but it is really bad. And I don't know if you should or shouldn't watch it. It's only 3 episodes and it tries its hardest, but God help them. It's just terrible.
I mean, I definitely will watch it, but if it's been very poorly received, I might find out from my roommate if he actually wants to watch it, because my expectation was that my roommate and I would watch it together, but if it's been very poorly received, he might not actually want to watch it.
It's not
In
that
which case-
long. It's not that long.
Yeah.
It's like
We have a finite amount of time for watching stuff together, though.
Mm.
And like right now we're still finishing Silo because I left for a con right before
Silo.
Yeah.
Holy crap. That show,
So good.
the production design on Apple TV shows, like
Mhm,
is like that show looks like $1 billion. Like I can't even get over how realistic that show looks all the time.
Yeah.
That show is incredible. I love that.
Yeah.
That show is great. That's an A+
It's
show.
really good.
It's really good. And it looks really good. Actually, there's a YouTube I just saw. Adam from Mythbusters went to the production set and went to the set to see how they do Silo. And it is it's actually horrifying. Like the amount of time and effort and detail it takes for them to make one room. It's like looks like thousands of hours, and I'm just like, oh my god, this sounds like. I'm just thinking, thank God this show was renewed. Can you imagine, like, you're spending thousands and thousands of man years on producing these shows and doing the production design and the set design, and then it's canceled, and I'm just like, because they showed it, and I was like, oh my god, this show. It's so hard to make the show look good. It's absolutely insane. Anyhow, if you haven't seen Silo, watch it because it's been renewed for season up to season 4, and then it ends. So it's actually going to end. It goes season 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then it ends. So, and season 2 just ended, and their season 3 is actually already shot, and I think they're finishing up season 4 now. So definitely watch it. Actually, pretty much anything on Apple TV is pretty damn good. Like all the
Yeah, a lot
shows
of
are
people
really
have been
good.
talking about the new season of Severance being good.
Well, Severance is one of my favorite shows of all time, and
Yeah.
I actually haven't watched the new season yet because I don't love waiting a week, so I might wait till the whole season is kind of like finished up before I see Severance. But Severance is really, really, really good. I would definitely recommend, and that's a show you can watch. I've seen it like 3 times because the first time you watch it, you don't know what the hell's going on. Then the second time you watch it, you can catch all the nuance because there's a lot of stuff in that show. Leave it at that. Now everything on the pretty much most of the Apple TV shows, they look great. They're really good. I would recommend Silo strongly. How about Ballerina? Are you excited about that? That's the new John Wick one.
I'm contractually obligated to be excited about it. Of course I am.
Yeah, it actually looks really good, and the actress in that, what's her name? She was the best part of that terrible James Bond movie. She was in that movie for 10 minutes. What's it? The Arms. And she had an action scene, and she was so good. And I was like, damn, she is good at action. And I guarantee they watched that and said, oh my God, this girl can be like a John Wick, you know? And so I might think it's going to be very good, especially if it's the same team. So, and he said he can't do those movies. I mean, he's 60. You know, it's like, I think he even said, like, you know, he wishes he could, but look, it's just hard for him to do these movies. And more importantly, how much longer can he do it? 70?
Yeah.
Is he going to be like Wolverine till he's 90?
Yeah.
So,
legacy building is important, especially like when you start to realize that you're not going to be able to do something anymore.
Yeah.
Actually identifying people who can still do it and making sure that you're creating space for them to move into that, I think is really good.
Have you seen any of the shows or movies we've talked about, Mark? Even a single one?
I don't think I have seen any of the shows or movies that you've talked about. Maybe Thunderbirds a little bit when I was a little kid.
There we go. I would recommend actually all those to you, Mark. You'd like Silo. Silo's really good.
I think I would have, between Silo and Severance, they're both really good, but I would recommend Silo a little bit higher for you specifically because Severance might be more of a bummer show.
Silo is also it's funny because
Silo's a dystopian future or something, right? I was
It's not bad.
Googling when you were, and so Severance is more of a bummer show than that.
Well,
it is actually more of a bummer show in a lot of ways because it makes you think pretty hard. Actually, it's pretty interesting. I'm not giving anything away because this starts off.
No,
the show.
That's fair.
Is that...
I do not consider that to be anything that has spoiled me of saying that it's a bummer show that makes me think very hard.
Oh yeah,
I looked it up to see, and the premise is that this person's work and their non-work are severed in their memories, and so they can't remember one and the other.
But what makes that fascinating is that the person who works never leaves work. Like when he goes in the elevator to leave, his next memory is coming into work. So think about that. His entire life is work, as opposed to the other person. So now they are now living literally two separate lives with two separate personalities, and it gets weird. And that's the whole thing of like, wow. And these people that their entire lives are working, but also if they take off the severance program, then they effectively die. So it becomes a really fascinating moral quandary. It's a very interesting show.
Yeah,
Like,
Silo
really
might have an apocalypse, but it's like solidly a completely different world where things are happening. It's like completely contained within like a fictional premise, whereas being able to split off your work persona from yourself is a fictional premise, but it's much more grounded in reality.
No, that one
which
is like
makes
scary.
Yeah,
I think that's a
makes
scarier show, to be honest.
it makes it a bigger bummer because it's like so much closer.
It's really close.
I get it. I understand. There was one project I was doing where some of the suggested reading had one thing, and a coworker thought, because I don't really like bummer stuff, that I wouldn't make it through one where I think like 90% of the population of multiple reality Earths, including the main one, die. But almost all of like the main named characters, and they survive. It's like, well, almost everyone died. Now we have to do this. And because of the fact that the POV characters are still like trying hard and doing their thing, I didn't like it that 90% of people died, but it was easier to get through it than when like my 3 POV characters who I want to see, or my 1 in the case of Song of Ice and Fire, dies. And then it's like, well, okay, I'm done. That was the only person that I was reading this for.
Severance, they're both really
Does that make me horrible that 90% of the population can go away? It's just because it's about reading. It's not about what I would want to happen in real life.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're reading a work of fiction and you get invested in your point of view character, and they are literally your point of view into the world. So it makes sense to be invested into the part of the world that you associate with the way that you're able to access it. And so killing off your point of view character is like an interesting literary thing to do, but like you said, not for everyone. Your attachment to the story can change and not recover after that.
Also, it's sometimes a side character that I am interested in. If I really don't like the remaining POV characters or the remaining characters, then it's just like, all right, whatever. And some people have told me, but keep reading because you hate those characters and you want to see bad things happen to them. I'm like, no, I don't care, because I cared about the struggle of the character that I liked.
Yeah.
So for the main question,
let's move to the actual question.
I'm going to tell you where I got this idea from.
Okay, Stephen, why are you asking if the rules matter?
So I actually play a lot of board games, and I started to play a board game that was many people's game of the year last year called Arcs. And I'm sure people in chat have heard of it. It's by Leader Games. It's an asymmetric game. And all the games by Leader are actually really good. And they're all kind of the same, and they all have this asymmetric balancing act. But because they're asymmetric, the balance between the factions has to be pretty much perfect. By the way, I played it with Derek. So people like Derek, actually, I played it with Derek, myself, and Jason McDonald 3 nights ago, and I absolutely destroyed them all. And then last night I played with Jason, John, and myself, and this game is so tight that on the second to last turn, I catapulted myself from way last place to first place, and then the entire game came down to one dice roll at the end. Did
you make it?
No, it was for John, and he had to fail it because he was attacking me, and if he could steal my stuff, then he would win. And if he couldn't, he needed 2 keys, and he rolled, and he had like a 90% chance to do it, and he rolled 1, and I.
So he failed, and you won.
Yes, right. And so, I was like,
you made it, but reversibly by them not making it.
Yeah, but the point is that because these asymmetric games are so perfectly balanced, it's like StarCraft, that even the tiniest change in the rules can destroy the whole balance of these games. So you really have to get the rules right. And I was thinking about this quite a bit because these games, by the way, there's a reason this game is like really good. It really makes you think because of the asymmetry and things change so quickly. and you can go from last place to first place on literally the last turn, that if you change the rules, and not just this game, I'm obviously a huge sports fan, and there's been a lot of controversy in football these last couple of weeks because, like, whether or not the quarterback on Kansas City has been cheating or abusing the rules. He's been like sliding. He's been doing things, and the refs are like, well, why is it that it's not called on him, but then it's called on the other team? So, there's a lot of these rule variations, and the whole point of sports is you don't want variation. In fact, that's why I like baseball, because baseball has pretty much no variation. They have instant replay now. In fact, almost all erroneous calls are gone in baseball, and once they go to automatic umpires for balls and strikes, they're gone. And another sport I follow very closely is tennis. And tennis a couple of years ago started this thing called the Hawkeye system, where all calls are by robots, and they're always right, and they're like insane how good they are. And there's no arguments. There's never an argument. And when there is an argument, or actually when there's a close call, they show exactly where the ball lands. And sometimes I've seen the ball be within a millimeter of the line, and they're like out or in, by that sliver of a meter. But it really has made tennis kind of a perfect sport because there's no more error. So I was thinking, these games require you to have perfect rules. And if you don't use the rules, then you have things like what happens in football, where people get really mad because one team is following different rules than another, even if it's in the same game, because the refs have discretion. And then you have something like TTRPGs, where I was actually editing a video, and it had something about homebrewing. And I was like, why is it we homebrew and make up rules, and everyone has their own rules, and it's just like willy-nilly, and change this, change that, and it's totally fine? So what is it about D&D and TTRPGs in general that make it okay to change the rules, or is it not okay? And as you two, Mark, who co-wrote Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which I would say is very crunchy and very rules-heavy, and Jessica, who does a lot of rules for a lot of games, what is your take on this whole thing, and why, and you've actually said, especially for Pathfinder, be careful, don't change the rules at first. Until you
Who said that?
Well, you've said to make sure you try the rules as written until you get a feel for it, and then change the rules. Not that you shouldn't, but you should try it originally.
I suggest that in any game.
Okay, fair enough.
At least try it a little bit first, but I am also very strongly in favor of modding your game. However, Stephen, I think there's actually two answers to your question. Right. There's the sort of less interesting answer of, well, exactly the way Stephen posed it, there's a very easy answer to this question. And then there's the extremely interesting topic that is revealed by ignoring your comparison to the sports and the other one. Here's the easy answer first. Here's the answer. There are board games that you can play that you can just mod the game, or the game even includes like 15 different difficulty mods that are in it. Or you go online on Board Game Geek and people are like, oh yeah, here's some mods we came up with, you should use them. For instance, you played Arcs, which is a game that a lot of people like. I've actually played a game that came out in the last year. It's very rare. Daybreak. It won the Spiel des Jahres last year.
I didn't read it.
And not only does it have difficulty mods in little random decks, but people online were like, yeah, those difficulty mods don't really make it that difficult. Here's one that you could use that does. And then a lot of people on Board Game Geek were like, oh yeah, we like this difficulty mod. You want to know what the difference is? Daybreak is cooperative. Dungeons, Dragons, and Pathfinder are cooperative. When you have a competitive game where the players are going against each other, you need to have a very solid, very stable rule base, because it's a competition. So if there's something squirrely or squidgy in the middle, part of the competition just becomes who can abuse that gray area more. And that's much less interesting of a question than the game of who can win the game. Whereas in a cooperative game, you don't. So that's the easy answer to your specific question when you compared it to two competitive games, football and Arcs.
Also, when you're talking about sports, and especially professional sports that are played within the context of a specific sports league, that is essentially tournament play. If you were going to a Magic the Gathering tournament, the tournament will have a particular set of rules that might be different from a different tournament. One tournament might ban a card that a different tournament doesn't ban, and those are the rules of the league that you are playing in. And so all of the games contained within that league have to follow the same rules, whereas not all games of Magic the Gathering need to adhere to the rules of that league.
That's definitely also true.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about football, it's more organized, but your Game of Arcs wasn't organized, but you still needed tight rules because it was competitive. Some people still make house rules in competitive games, to be clear. And sometimes those house rules are terrible and make an already bad game worse, like Monopoly, right? Monopoly is a terrible game. It's one of the worst games that the most people own. And the free parking rule actually makes, and like anything that makes it nicer to get more money actually makes the game so much worse because it lasts for longer instead of people running out of money like they were meant to, with like the sources and costs of the money sort of balancing out so the game won't become an eternal nightmare that haunts you for ages. So I think that that's sort of where I'm coming at to start. But now I want to talk about, do the official D&D rules even matter, or Pathfinder, or your whatever other our tabletop RPG? We're saying D&D in this title because that's what you looked at in the title and went to watch this video. But I think it's true for any TTRPG to an extent.
Yes.
So I would say yes, but yes, they matter, but that doesn't mean that they are as sacrosanct as like the rules of baseball or tennis would be. They matter because they give you a shared baseline. That means that if you are, compared to like, let's say you were just playing make-believe and you were playing a game with dragons in it, and Jess and I were playing, and then Steven, I went to go and Steven wanted to play a make-believe game, and we don't have any kind of shared baseline. Even if we both called the game Dragons or something like that, it could be completely different. Whereas Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder have some sort of a shared baseline. I could play with Jess and then move over and play with Steven, and we'd roughly understand each other. Even if we were going to house rule, even if we're going to make adjustments, we have something to start with. And so I think that's the main reason why they matter. And however, the strength of a tabletop RPG over a computerized system, talking about robots and tennis and things like that, is that the game master and the players can work together, or if the game master is the one who's more knowledgeable, maybe they do it, taking the players into account, to change the game, to modify it. I'm a huge fan of modding games and altering the rules. Just because they're there and they do matter doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't change them. So that's my overall thought.
All right, I have something spicy to say.
Ooh.
I have a hot take. If you are not engaging with the rules of a game, you are not playing that game.
What do you mean?
We could all sit down to play Monopoly, and we're going around the Monopoly board, and I draw the go to jail card, and I say, I'm not going to jail. I run. I get into a high-speed chase on the freeway, and I could go into describing my epic high-speed chase, and we could improvise house rules for the high-speed chase part of Monopoly, where I escape from the cops on the highway, and how likely am I to get into a car accident, and this and that. And that's a fun time. We're all having a great time at our board game night. However, the high-speed chase is not part of Monopoly. I'm not playing Monopoly when I'm doing that.
Unless we make the Monopoly TTRPG, we could.
But here's the interesting question I have for you on that hot take, though, Jess. So with Monopoly, I think most people watching this video, and if you don't agree with me, leave a comment for us that you don't, would agree with Jess that you're not playing Monopoly once you've started using your D6s from Monopoly to instead like determine whether or not you escape from the police with this improvised chase rules, and then you put down like cards from the locations on the board. It's like, oh man, now I'm escaping onto the boardwalk. That means that they have a good visibility of me because of this big boardwalk, and I have to roll a higher target number. And it's like, that's not Monopoly. I think most people would agree. But in a tabletop RPG that didn't have those chase rules, it had, let's say, heavy combat rules, but like not a specific set of chase rules. Let's say like most of the D&Ds don't. Pathfinder does, so we won't use that as an example. I would say most people would say you are playing D&D if the players are like, we want to run away from this monster, but obviously it has like a 50-foot speed, but there's like lots of windy tunnels or something like that, and all these obstacles. Is there a way we could like sneak and move over obstacles and try to escape from it? And the GM's like, okay, sure, hold on, let me homebrew a chase rules. And it's like, okay, in these locations you have to roll skill checks to get through the area, and we'll see if you escape from the creature. I feel like most people would say that you are playing D&D. But
you're still using like the speed of the monster and the visibility rules of the game, and you're still using all of your character class features and so on and so forth. You're not completely divorced from the rules of the game that you're playing.
What if you still use the six-siders from Monopoly, and you use the location spaces on the board? If you get on a railroad, you can try to escape to a different through the railway or something like that.
Yeah, where's the train heist rules for Monopoly?
Well, guess what?
Yeah.
This just came out. There are new expansion rules and expansion packs that you can buy from Monopoly. I swear to God, this just came out. Look at them, and you take them. They're extra boards that you put in the corners of your Monopoly board that adds new rules and new options. And this literally just came out like 2 weeks ago, and the only reason I know about this is because
one of them is the go to jail expansion about going to jail.
Yeah, I know, you're looking it up.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Like, Jess, did you know that?
No. No, I did not know
the expansion on going to jail where it's more complicated.
Yes.
It's literally exactly the same.
Yes, where you can now chase it, like go in a car chase and do all this stuff. Jess, you wrote this. I didn't know you had
you psychically connected to Hasbro somehow and created this by going back in time. You're a time traveling psychic.
This just came out.
You heard it here first on Roll for Combat. Jessica Redicop, freelancer extraordinaire, also works on Monopoly.
The only reason I know about this is because of all things I was watching. Don't judge me. I watch RuPaul's Drag Race, and on RuPaul's Drag Race,
they had the Monopulence challenge.
They sponsored the show.
That was so funny.
Yes, didn't you? So you did
funniest. That is one of the funniest sponsored challenges, the Drag Race, because there haven't been a lot of them since Absolute Vodka stopped sponsoring the show.
Well, I was like, Monopoly is sponsoring RuPaul's Drag. To be fair, RuPaul's Drag Race is actually one of the most popular shows in the world. So don't knock it. It's actually very, very, very popular. Yeah. But I couldn't believe that. I was like, holy crap. And I went to talk about that last week, actually. Mark,
yeah. Okay, Steven, whose side were you on in Trimgate?
Trimgate? Which one was that?
Trimgate. When Anya Nerve took Jewel Sparkle's trim that Jewel Sparkles told Anya Nerve that she was going to use.
Oh, that. Yeah, I remember. Oh, welcome to Trimgate.
Yeah.
Whose
side are you on in Trimgate, Steven?
I hated them both. I hate them both, so it doesn't matter. They're who's that one? There's the one in their 30s who won the first week.
Lexi Love.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, Lexi Love is great.
Like, I think she's gonna wipe the floor with the rest of them. Like, I'm actually, they're on their 20s. I actually am not impressed with this group at all. Except for Lexi Love. They're very.
I feel like RuPaul's Drag Race often casts very young drag queens.
No, this is by far the youngest crowd ever.
I don't know.
They're all in their 20s.
Of the past winners. Yeah, but a lot of I would say most Drag Race winners win in their 20s.
True, but keep in mind, and the show's been on for like 20 plus years. RuPaul's like in his 60s now, and then like all the other judges are all in their late 50s, and they're starting to look it. It's a little odd when you see 50 and 60-year-olds judging these 20-year-old drag queens. It's a little, I don't know, it's not off-putting, but it is a little odd because these are like 2 or 3 generations removed. Anyhow, back to the main topic. Yes, there are expansions to Monopoly now. So
there you go. it's almost like it was there to like derail Jess's hot take on this, which I think was a very good and insightful way to look at it.
mean, the Monopoly car chase rules to evade the police when you are sent to jail are just one example of when you like completely veer off of the rule set of a game. And the gray area for what is or is not contained within the rule set of the game is clearer cut in a board game and becomes a fuzzier and fuzzier border as you move into TTRPGs. And it is the case that it is the norm to house roll for TTRPGs, to improvise for TTRPGs, and when the players have an idea for what they want to do in a TTRPG, you just kind of like roll with it and figure out how you're going to adjudicate it. However, the rules that a TTRPG presents to you tell you what kind of game you are expected to run with that TTRPG. When you play Root, you are expected to be a vagabond. You are not expected to be a diplomat from the Marquis de Cat. That is not what the Root rules are written for. They are written for you to be a vagabond. All of the playbooks are for vagabonds. You could run a Root game where everyone is diplomats from the Marquis de Cat, but at what point are you just simply not playing Root, the game?
By the way, I always play the vagabond, if you couldn't guess. By the way, there's a card in here called Snitch. Send another player to super jail. Oh my god. There's not
just from when you're in jail that you go to super jail?
Yes, there's super jail.
Okay. Oh boy.
And by the way, if you want to see
the Severance, like Severance, going to super jail in Monopoly is too much for me.
Yes. Also, the super jail cartoon from 2007. That show is messed up. I love that show, by the way. Check that out if you're into like psychedelics. It's really fun. Anyhow,
so looking onto what you're saying though, Jess, is it about the like sort of the sudden sharp break where you're doing something completely different and claiming it's the game, or is it more about violating the expectations of the game?
So I do think that you're still playing the game even when you improvise. Like, I don't 100% stand behind this hot take, but I do stand behind it from the point of view of being a game designer designing a game. Your game should be designed to do the things that you expect players to do when they play that game. And you shouldn't be writing rules for the things that are unimportant or irrelevant to you as a game designer and unimportant or irrelevant to the expectation that you have of how this game is going to go. Dungeons & Dragons is primarily a combat simulator, and you don't have to do combat. But I often hear people say things like, my friends and I don't do combat, we just roleplay. We had a great time playing D&D last week, and we went for 4 hours and nobody even picked up their die. And like, I'm glad you had fun. It's great that you're having fun with your friends, and you're clearly doing something that's very fun with your friends. But if none of you picked up a die in 4 hours, I'm not sure that what you're doing is playing Dungeons & Dragons, because playing Dungeons & Dragons is engaging with the rules of Dungeons & Dragons. You could have fun with your friends for 4 hours with any game. And if what you are doing is completely divorced from the rules of Dungeons & Dragons such that you don't engage with it for 4 hours, why does it matter that you're playing Dungeons & Dragons and not a different TTRPG? Like, does it matter? Would it make any material difference to this game if you were playing a different game? Would your experience of the game be exactly the same, regardless of what game you are playing? And if you are, then I don't know that you're playing any of these games.
So that one's an interesting one that I've heard before. I'm going to try. There's an extent to which I agree with you, especially if you play an entire campaign and you're like, we finished the campaign, we never rolled a die or used any of our characters' abilities. That's a little weird. But I'm going to also, there's an extent to which I don't agree. And so I'll devil's advocate the other side, which is if right before those 4 hours, you were in those 4 hours, you were at a dinner party talking to people, and no one really needed to make an impression. It was more of just about socializing. And before that, you rolled a whole bunch of checks to scout out and find information about people. And after those 4 hours, the next session had a bunch of combats that happened afterwards. And it was like a roleplay info session.
Mhm.
And during those 4 hours, we played the character that was the character that we played both before and after, who had all of those abilities that that character had, might have had even used some that didn't require a check or a die roll. Like if I have, I don't know, a short distance teleport and used it at some point during the party or something like that. And more importantly, the whole speak softly and carry a big stick situation, which is that I am a PC in a Dungeons and Dragons game, and I am a sorcerer with Meteor Swarm. And so I always have this threat of violence that if I need to, I could drop meteors on this party and everyone would die. And all the NPCs have to treat me differently when they're talking to me because they know that anyone who might come up at me during the party, I know I'm relatively safe, or like I can drink the liquor. I don't need to test it for poison because even if it was poisoned, my constitution save or my fortitude save is very high compared to like the random nobles who live here. And so my actions were decided, even though the GM didn't put in poison, never called for a save. Were in some ways determined by living in the D&D world and knowing that my characters followed the rules of the D&D world and not some other make-believe rules where the GM would just describe, okay, and you died from the poison because you didn't test it first. Sorry, in this world, poison is more like the real world where it's very deadly and you're not just going to shrug it off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely, it makes sense. And like I said, I'm just being provocative, saying things in the most provocative way that I can phrase them.
I'm not also fully on that side, but I wanted to argue that side to put it out there because I know Steven's kind of the ref here who has like come up with that question, but he seriously wants to ask it. I think that's what people on the other side who do play those games where they never roll the die, but they are like, it matters to me that it's D&D would say. Like, didn't some of the people from Dimension 20 say that the reason they like D&D is that they know the rules part so well that can just get out of the way, and if they need it in the background, they can pull it at any time, and they can therefore focus on the role play most of the time.
Yeah, I will also say that I think that when people argue that like Dimension 20 could be any system, it doesn't have to be D&D, and the way that they continue to use D&D for like the fantasy high seasons, I think arguing that that is not D&D is completely bonkers to me, because there's a rules history to Dungeons and Dragons that it has throughout all of its editions, but there's also a history of setting norms and setting conventions. And I believe this happened on Worlds Beyond Number and not Dimension 20, but if your GM is going to describe something as being prismatic like 16 times in a single session, you cannot convince me that's not Dungeons and Dragons. Prismatic has like a specific meaning within the context of Dungeons and Dragons. A prism in Dungeons and Dragons, a prismatic effect, that's a thing. Something being described as being scintillating in a Dungeons and Dragons context is specific. It is evoking a specific thing.
Yeah, I mean, prismatic, it is a word, and it sometimes does mean that it has all the colors from a prism, but it certainly, usually it just means that it's like a prism, right? Or just like very, very like brilliant or saturated colors or something like that. So the fact that when you use it to mean it's all the colors of a prism, that is possibly not D&D. It is there is an English word for it, but it certainly gives you D&D vibes for sure. So there you go. I'll bring that back to you. What if that session with no rolling had prismatic stuff? It had all the D&D vibes and terminology were being used. They just happened not to do any rolling. Were they still not playing D&D?
The vibes and the terminology are the vibes and terminology of D&D because they come from the D&D rules. We associate prismatic effects with a specific thing in Dungeons and Dragons because prismatic effects are a thing in the rules. They have bearing in the rules and they mean something in the rules. And so when you evoke them, you are using the rules of the game.
That's fair. How about a compromise on this? I will say that in that session where they didn't roll anything, a litmus test, if you will, if one of the characters pulled out poison and drank it, or applied it to poison one of the other people at the party, if the GM still would not have rolled any dice in that scenario, then they probably weren't playing D&D, because what the heck? Any reasonable interpretation of the rules about when to ask for a check and when to make it an automatic success would say that, like, drinking poison or secretly applying a poison and then the other person drinking it would have a check at that point. If they would be like, no, even that, no, we're just not going to do checks no matter what in this game, then it's some kind of other free-form role play in the Dungeons and Dragons world. Which, to be clear, that's fine. I have literally written a one-shot that was a free-form role play that was with some other sort of rules to it, where there was timing that certain actions would take that would click a doomsday clock, and then everybody dies, and you wake up back at the beginning, and it's a loop, right?
However, clocks are mechanics.
Yeah, no, that is its own mechanic. It had its own mechanic, but it was inspired and connected to some of, like, the occult adventures rules from Pathfinder. But this was not a Pathfinder game, even though, like, the story of how things worked had an explanation that could be explained by Pathfinder terms, Pathfinder setting lore, and sort of the way that psychic occult magic worked. You could explain everything. In fact, lots of things were sort of named or based after that in a certain way. But I still wasn't running Pathfinder. That's when I advertised that one shot, I did not advertise it as being Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So,
Mark, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so there's two aspects. It's like, do the quote official D&D rules even matter? And I'll say yes and no. Like, yeah, you need rules and you need a basis, but obviously people change them by official ways, by either getting, like in Pathfinder, like, you know, when you start a game with Pathfinder, you might say what books and what sources are usable in a game and which aren't, or what spells are usable in a game it's not, or then you start using third-party material, whether it's Battlezoo stuff is usable in a game or not, and then it goes to homebrew material. It's like whether you have homebrew material and stuff. But to Jess's point, you need rules, because every time I've had some of the biggest fights in my life, it's always over perceived rules for a TTRPG game that you're playing. And if you all have different sets of ideas of how something's supposed to work, I mean, think about it. How often have we heard the story of a bad DM where they ruined the game? In fact, I've heard so many people.
There's whole communities dedicated to discussing situations with bad GMs or bad players.
Yeah, exactly. So, but why are they bad? It's because they didn't smell good? Or is it because they're offensive sometimes? Is it because they're offensive? No, because they didn't like the rulings most of the times. They didn't like the rulings, or they didn't like the story, or they didn't like the direction the story went. But it comes down to something usually rules related. It's because the players have an idea of the rules in their mind, and the GMs have an idea of the rules in their mind, and then the DMs override the players, which messes up the story, which causes massive fights, which is why you need to have a common guideline and rule set so everyone's on the same playing field. And this is probably one of the top reasons that games fall apart. It's because people aren't agreeing or talking about the rules. And that's like, in my games, it's very easy. We do rules as written, so there's no arguments. And often what will happen in my games is, and I'm the GM, is that they'll say, Steve, can I do this? They never assume anything. And they also know that 99% of the time, I'll say, no problem. I don't care. Like, yeah, that's fine. You know, unless they're trying to do something crazy. Or I'll say, no, not that, but let's do it this way. So they also know and trust me enough that if they want to, quote, change the rules or do something that, quote, isn't rules as written, they have the opportunity as long as they come up with something fun and creative.
So let me try to put that in a succinct way, and then I want to hear Jess's question for me from before that, which is, the rules matter. Stephen's take is, the rules matter because choosing not to follow them is different than not having them in the first place.
Correct.
It's a very different situation than if they just weren't even there.
Yeah, and not only that, that's not even that official rules matter. I don't think official rules matter, but what does matter is that everyone is playing with the same rule set and the same understanding. And that could be anything. That could be D&D. That could be Magic the Gathering. That could be, I've played games of tennis. I play tennis a lot. And sometimes it'll be like, oh, and sometimes when we play doubles, sometimes we'll play singles and you're using doubles lanes and sometimes you're not. And then we'll be like, oh, we're not using doubles. Oh, I thought we were using doubles. It's a 5-second conversation, but suddenly, if that's not stated in the beginning, or sometimes you have first serve in, which means you can keep serving until the ball goes in. You don't have two serves and then you fault. You just keep going. So those have to be established rules from the outset. Otherwise, because that's a competitive game, so people will get angry if suddenly you're playing. And you didn't know that it's first serve in and you're getting the ball and they hit it once, they hit it twice, and that's double fault. You move over to the other side, they go, oh, no, we're playing first serve in. I keep going. And you were like, what? That's not what we agreed to. That's not the rules. It's like, well, I thought we were playing that way. Well, I didn't think we were playing that way. And then there you go. Now, add that to a community with 4 other players, and it can get very messy, very heated, very fast. So I don't know. All I know is in my games, as long as everyone knows they're playing with the same rules, that's what matters. And that's sacrosanct. That is like above everything else. And when that doesn't happen, bad things happen. Period. And that's, I think, for anything. That's not just D&D. That's like life. Because yeah. Anyhow, that's my take. Subject done. No.
So the question I had for Mark is also a question for Steven, but have you heard of Jubenchas?
Yes, Jubenchas came up on the show last week.
Oh, that thing, yes.
The popular, remember, Steven, popular in China murder mystery things that were like that, How to Host a Murders from back in like the 80s.
What is going on? That's the second week in a row.
Well, so I played one a couple weeks ago at OrcaCon, and it was very cool, but I think that the format of Jubenchas and the question of is a Jubencha a game is relevant to the question of do rules matter for a game, and what are the rules of a Jubencha if you need to be playing by the rules of a game in order to be playing that game.
So please tell us more detail what the rules of the Jubencha you played were like, not in like excruciating, but in more, because we talked about them and we know vaguely what they are and that they're like those older games from before. But I want to know, like, what specifically was it like?
Well, wait. And before that, I do want to mention that Jess, actually, this goes into something that you can discuss, because you play a lot of these live action role play games. Like,
I play some. Yeah, I LARP.
You LARP. And
I LARP.
What happens when you have a LARP with 100+ people and some people don't or going by the wrong rules? Which I'm sure happens pretty frequently, or misunderstandings. Like, is there a judge or is there an adjudicator? Like, how does that work? So I'm actually very curious about.
I LARPed once, and it was a big problem because there was one very antagonistic player who wanted to kill everyone else and was cheating. It was not good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, so how does that get handled? Because that's a game that has rules, but also you can play with a lot of people who might not be playing by the rules. So how does that work? So
yeah, staffing LARPs is very difficult because, like you said, you could have a very high number of players, and how many staff members, how many adjudicators do you reasonably want to have on the ground to be able to deal with problems as they arise? For the most part, in a LARP, a lot of interactions that you might be having, because there's not that many adjudicators, are going to be players interacting with other players, doing role-playing, doing, like, if you're sitting down for a D&D session but you don't roll dice for 4 hours because you're just vibing at a dinner party, you can vibe at a dinner party with that other player as, like, the person that you're conversing with without a GM present. It's fine. You can just, like, have your conversation, pretend to be elves together. But Yeah, generally, you would want to have a certain number of staff members who are at varying levels of authority, right? So you're going to have like the person whose game this is, they're like the head GM or whatever. And then you would have a group of other GMs who are also running the game and running the plot. And this is a group of people who all know what the storyline that you're telling together is. And then those people might have assistants. And then maybe below that, you have people who are just adjudicators. They're just kind of like people on the ground who, if you have a rules dispute, go find one of these people. They're playing their own characters, but they have been given the authority from whatever like levels removed they are from the game master that like these people will solve your rule dispute for you.
We do have a
Yeah,
super
I've
So
seen
that's-
all of those too.
yeah.
we have
The
a
one cheating player in the game I played told some new players that they were one of those people who could solve rules disputes, even though they weren't. Yay.
And they should have been immediately kicked out as soon as that was discovered.
They probably should have. It was an existing group where all of the existing people knew that one guy was just kind of a jerk, and that was just kind of his thing. And yeah, I never played again, but that's just how it was. There's a super chat from Jonka. The GM always overrides rules. Could be a lazy cop out, because if the GM is arbitrary about what rules are followed and what aren't, then it can lead to players feeling like their choices don't matter. I think that is true. Like when you're changing the rules, which you definitely can, and I encourage, try to do it consistently. That's a way to do it. Like fair is a word that like, well, what is fair? But if you do it consistently and people know what to expect, then that's much better than if you're this week you changed it this way, next week you changed it another way, and the week after that you change it a third way, and nobody knows what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah,
hear.
if you're
Back
gonna
to you then,
say-
Chess.
Yeah, let's
okay,
hear
yeah.
your take on that, and because
All right.
I've never
So the
played. I didn't even
Juventia-
hear about them until last week, and now we found someone
Yeah.
who not only knows of them but played one.
I
So-
heard about them,
Yeah.
but I want to know more because I always want to know about different
Yeah.
role-playing games. Or is it not a game? I want to hear.
The Juventia that I played was called Secret Tribe. Aaron Roberts brought it to OrcaCon, and it was very fun. So the way that it was set up, the box that it came with a booklet of like the general rules that just kind of explained what the structure of the game would be. And that was information that was accessible to everyone playing the game. We read it aloud. Then everyone who was playing, and the game was very specific that you could play it with 5 or 6 players, no other number. Every player, when you play with 5 people, has a booklet that they receive that describes their character. It tells you their character's backstory, who they are in this world, and then because Secret Tribe is a murder mystery, it tells you your timeline of what your character was doing on the day that the murder occurred. And so you have this information about your character. It is for you alone. And that sets you up to be able to act through your role in this murder mystery, because the murder mystery has an established story coming out of the box in the same way that a pre-written adventure would. And so
If
you
you're
know
the killer,
exactly...
does it give you a fake timeline that you can say that you know is not going to get immediately screwed over? Or does it just say, well, at 3 p.m. you were murdering this guy?
So the rules say that if you are not the murderer, you cannot lie. If you are the murderer, you can lie. And if your timeline involves you having like missing memories, or because I don't want to give away the particular conditions of Secret Tribe, but if you have like missing memories, or like you are only an attempted murderer, like maybe everybody in the game attempted to do the murder, but only one person actually succeeded, and you're not sure if you're the murderer or not. For as long as you're uncertain and you could be the murderer, you can lie. But if you get confirmation that your attempt at murder was unsuccessful and you know that you are not the murderer, from that point onward, you can no longer lie.
Which means that you have to admit all of your malfeasance and crimes.
If
even
they
if
come,
it wouldn't
if they come
help
up
you.
again. If they come up again.
Yeah, or if anyone asks you, of course.
Yes. From that point onward, where you confirm that you are not the murderer, if anybody asks you again about something you had previously lied about, you now have to admit that you lied and explain what the truth was.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
What if you incorrectly determine that you weren't the murderer because you made a mistake with the information? Like, because you thought you might be, and then you're like, wait, I think my attempt failed, but then it turns out that you were the murderer.
So the way that Secret Tribe was set up, it had multiple rounds of play. So in the first round, we just went around introducing our characters and then going over our timelines with each other, and then doing like role play to interact with each other in like describing our timelines. In the second round of play, a number of cards were introduced, and these cards had like pieces of evidence on them. And the pieces of evidence were like gathered from different locations in the village. So like if you were investigating someone's house in particular, or investigating the house where the murder happened in particular, and then everyone drew a certain number of cards and then held them in their hand. And then as you continue the conversation to question each other about their timelines, you can play your evidence cards. So like when I was looking through your house, I found this knife. Do you want to explain this knife to everyone? And then the person whose house that was found in, presumably their packet would explain the knife in their house so they would know the information that they're supposed to answer with. And so in that way, you can tee up the reveal of certain information during certain phases of play. And the evidence as it's revealed makes it obvious what happened during missing time, or if your murder was unsuccessful, it will like present the evidence that your murder was unsuccessful or what have you. And then there's a final
It'll be
round.
very, very quick cut. It'll just be like, it'll be an evidence that is just like, Jess did not kill it. It just says
like,
it
won't say that. It'll say something. It'll say something to the effect of like, in your packet, it says you thought he was allergic to peanuts, so you put peanuts in his food so that his deadly peanut allergy would kill him. And then you would get an evidence that says like, he wasn't allergic to peanuts.
But it would never be like, he wasn't allergic to peanuts, he was allergic to macadamia nuts. And then you find out that you actually had put some macadamia nuts in there with the peanuts, so you did kill him after all.
It would be some version of that where it like makes it clear to you that you did not murder this person.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I always think about user error, even in situations like that, where the peanut person maybe just isn't paying enough attention or doesn't even realize that exonerates them, and then they therefore keep lying.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if they continued to lie, there is still like a real murderer, right?
Right.
And so the evidence eventually will point towards the real murderer.
Is it possible for the murderer to win, or is it just how many rounds do they make it until the evidence points to them?
No, it is possible. So when we played, the evidence that exonerated the potential murderers was like pretty clear cut for those players to see and understand what was happening and that they were not the murderer. But the evidence that pointed towards the actual murderer was actually difficult enough that at the end of the 2 evidence cards rounds, because there's a first round of evidence with the evidence that you gather from like people's houses, and then there's a second round of additional evidence cards that you gather from investigating various other places, different other stuff that you find. And so the first round, you drew your evidence cards into your hand and then played them whenever in the conversation felt appropriate. In the second round, there were face down piles, and you just chose a pile to turn over from, and you went around the table, each person turning over 1 card. And by the end of those 2 rounds, then the booklet that just had the rules had some guiding questions that it prompted the table to discuss as a group. And so those questions were meant to put us on the right track of making sure, if we hadn't ourselves asked the questions that are like really the most relevant, to make sure that we did have those discussions. And then after that, we voted on who we thought the murderer was by writing down the name of our suspect on a piece of paper and then like folding it and putting it at the center of the table. And then all of the votes are gone through. And we did not successfully identify the murderer.
There you go. So it is possible for the murderer to win.
Did you like it, or you weren't so sure?
It was fabulous, and I walked away from that thinking, oh, I want to write my own Jubentra.
So what made it different than, I don't know, a murder? Like what? Why? What made it a Jubentia versus something else?
I mean, so Jubentia is a name for a contemporary wave of murder mystery parlor LARPs. And so what makes a Jubentia different from a murder mystery parlor LARP? The answer is nothing. This is the name of a wave of that thing. So that is a description of the thing that it is. I don't have a lot of familiarity with other murder mystery parlor LARPs, so I can't compare it against other ones. I've only played this one. But the format of it was very interesting, and the way that it guided the role play into what it needed to be was fabulous.
So you said there's some contention over whether it's a game, but I think it's obviously a game to me.
Oh no, that was a fake thing that I said.
Oh, okay. That was just you fanning the flames.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely a game. It has rules. The rules are that you read your packet and you don't read other people's packets. If you are the murderer, you can lie, and if you're not the murderer, you can't lie. And it has a structure to the game of rounds wherein you have evidence cards and you play evidence cards. All of those are rules of a game.
By the way, the murderer can lie. Is that about facts of the game, or is that period while you're playing?
About your characters.
Oh, okay, like, about the information on the sheets.
Yeah, like in character while you are playing, and if somebody asks you, where were you at 3:00? Only the murderer can answer that with something that is not true to what was written on their sheet about where they were at 3:00.
Okay, so it's about factual information on the sheet. It's not like the game of the two knights, one of whom tells the truth and one of whom lies, where everything has to be the truth. So if you ask, how are you feeling, or something like that, and they're like, fine, and they're not really fine, then you're like, well, aha, it was the murderer.
I mean, it depends on, like, how do you think your character is feeling, I guess. If you think that your character is genuinely feeling fine while they're, like, being accused of murder, then...
Yeah, they might have just said it to be polite, though, but that's a polite lie.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that is where you could say that there's a gray area in the rules, but I think it's meant to be only the murderer can lie about what is on their sheet, because you need to be able to trust that other characters aren't lying to you for no reason in order to actually do the deduction successfully.
That makes sense. Or lying for a reason, a very reasonable reason of they didn't want you to know that they attempted to kill them with peanuts, even though they didn't succeed. Because if I were someone who attempted to kill someone with peanuts and it wasn't absolutely necessary to prove my innocence of having actually killed them with a knife, I would definitely not reveal that I had attempted to kill them with peanuts, because I would think that that meant that people would think I did kill them with the knife after the peanuts didn't work or something like that.
Right. So the character that I played had a secret that they were holding from the rest of the group, that one of their objectives was to conceal this piece of information. But if I were asked directly about it, I can't lie. And so it's just on me to maneuver what I say around this fact so that I don't get asked about it. And eventually the evidence comes up that forces me to be asked about it, of course. But in order to make my character look like a potential suspect, the instructions that I have in my booklet say, don't tell anybody that you were asked to kill the guy that was killed. Don't tell anybody about the text message you received that says that you were, or whatever it was, right? Like,
it's an unwinnable objective, but that makes you sketchy on purpose so that it hides the murderer a little bit. It gives them a little bit of cover.
Yeah, but as soon as I am asked about it, I cannot lie about it, right? I have to tell the truth about the fact that this sketchy secret is true about me.
Which I guess means the murderer has to be careful because of the fact that they will need to tell a lot of uncomfortable truths to make sure they're not contradicted. And if they are contradicted, they'll need to say, sorry about that, guys. That was back earlier on when I thought I might be the murderer, but I later realized that I am not. Yeah, no,
Right.
I think that's very interesting. It definitely reminds me of those older games that Steven knows. I actually, I'm pretty sure I either played one or I saw one when I was very little. Saw people playing one, so I know
Mhm.
what Steven is talking about. Like my parents had one, like in the back closet or something,
Mhm.
like the How to Host a Murderer or
Yeah.
whatever it's
How to
called.
host a murder mystery, how to host a murder. Those were very popular in the 80s, mid late
Mhm.
80s. They were just like popping up everywhere. They were like the big thing. So, um,
However, the rules of the Jubentia that I played were very clearly that we are the suspect of this murder. We're going to converse with each other and discuss the evidence that we find in order to try to find the murderer. If I, playing the murderer, decide that actually I just want to murder everybody else here and then run away into the night, that's not something that the rules for this game account for, because that's not how you play the game.
You're not
That is a
playing the
thing.
Juventus at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
But
You
here's my
are.
question: what if you were the murderer, Jess, and you
Mhm.
decided? Doesn't say on your sheet this, but doesn't say the opposite either. It doesn't say how you're feeling. It just says you
Mhm.
kill them and you did it
Yeah.
with a knife.
Mhm.
And you're like, actually, I feel that from reading this story in my tragic past and how this person abused me and then I killed him, but that I'm really a gentle person at heart, I feel like my character is too guilty and wants to admit it. So it says you can lie. Would you be playing the Jubentia if everyone gets around and you start and you're like, hey, I killed him with a knife. I'm definitely sure it was me. Some of you guys might think you killed him with something else, but you didn't. It was definitely me. Are you playing it just like badly or in a way that's uninteresting? Or are you not playing it at that point?
I mean, at that point, if you start the game and the murderer round one just tells everybody is the murderer, you're depriving everybody else of the opportunity to participate in a murder deduction game, right?
But
You're
are
not
you
playing the game.
playing?
No. No, I mean, you're playing the game up until the point where you do that. When at that point the game is over because everybody knows you're the murderer. The game
Yeah,
game concluded. The
I would
game
agree.
lasted like 20 seconds and now it's over.
You're playing it
Not
badly and for a short period
bad.
of time. Even if you feel that's what your character would do, don't do that. Don't do
Mhm.
that, folks. Jonka said in super chat. Oh no, that was a previous super chat.
Yeah.
Sorry, we just hadn't moved through. I thought I saw a new one pop up.
Yeah, wow. I can't believe nobody has super chats about this Jubentia that I played that none of you played at OrcaCon.
no one has anything about anything. Fine, I will steer this. So I think I think we answered this question more or less.
I think we did because the three of us, I think, Jess is putting her hot takes out there. I'm trying to do some devil's advocates, but I think we generally agree on the idea
You need rules.
that the rules matter, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't go beyond the rules
No,
purposefully.
the rules matter, and everyone has to agree on the same set of rules. Otherwise, you're just people playing make
You're
believe.
in for a bad time.
Yeah, you're playing make believe in different rule sets. So last week we started down this road that I think we're going to continue because so many people are interested. Is that we were coming up with a TTRPG based on punctuation, and I'm looking
was
at
a
the
joke,
comments
but-
as a joke, but so many people left names for this.
Well, because you asked at
TTRPG.
the end, and it's an inspirational thing for a
Inspirational.
comment.
They're good. We have one's called Punctuality. That's a pretty good one.
So in Jess, in this game, you play as a punctuation mark. And
Yes.
so we were theorizing. I was making like optimizer guide snarky comments and be like, semicolon is so terrible. I mean, period and comma, they know what they're doing. They're single focus class with semicolon. It's just all spread out there. It doesn't really do one or the other well. It's just trying too much to be a jack of all trades,
Well,
master
we
of
have
none.
Jess here. We can start fleshing it out a bit more. Maybe we can start turning this into something. But so look at some of these are really good. We have Hyperboil. We have Grammar Zoo. Not bad. But then one guy, the Woodland Fellowship, boy, he hit it out of the park. He has Fighting Words. That one's really good. Pointed Elements. Internal nod to the Chicago Elements of Style rules. We have Marks. We have Arcane Symbols. Symbols and Sigils and Symbols. Runes and Goons. But probably my favorite one is Death Sentence. Oh, that one's really good. Actually, I was like, that's I like that so much. We have Sentence Finder, of course. We have Dashes and Dragons. That one's pretty good too. There's a lot of really good. I was like, we were having trouble coming up with one, but all these are pretty good. Grim Grammar, that's a good one.
So, Steven, the thing about the elements of style battle reminds me of The Onion had an article, I think in 2013, 4 copy editors killed in ongoing AP style Chicago manual gang violence.
Oh yeah, that sounds right.
It was obviously The Onion,
Yes.
right? But it's something that the editors at Paizo found very funny and close to home about, like, you know, like how, just like we're talking here about rules and how there can be big fights that you said, Stephen, over those things, like how editors who like to use the Chicago manual of styles versus the Associated Press, just like these styles.
But that's like, isn't that like? I won't go there.
No, but they can have really big opinions. So the Onion article was like, FBI spokesman Paul Hallstein showed reporters graffiti tags in which the word antisocial with a dash between antisocial had been corrected to read antisocial without a dash. The deadly territory dispute between these two organizations, as well as the notorious MLA handbook gang, has claimed the lives of more than 63 publishing professionals this year alone. The 35-year-old passerby found himself caught in a long-winded dispute over the use of the serial or Oxford comma.
There you go. I mean, I'm almost like, you could almost turn this into a party game. I'm like trying to think how to do this because those like card-based party games are so freaking popular. I was like,
well, I suggested one last time where you have cards in your hand that are words, and then everybody goes around the circle playing the words from their hand, and you are trying to steer this sentence, which has to be a grammatical sentence, so that you can put your punctuation mark in, and you score by putting in your punctuation mark between the word that the last person played and the new word that you're about to play.
Yeah.
You say, I don't know about punctuations.
I have a pitch for this game.
Okay.
My pitch, you know how you have a sentence and the meaning of that sentence can be changed based on the absence or presence of the way that that sentence is punctuated.
Yes.
I think
especially in a text.
Yes, I think the stronger game versus having words in your hand is having the punctuations in your hand and playing the punctuation into different parts of the sentence to change the meaning of the sentence.
So maybe the first part of the game is, maybe it's 2 rounds. Maybe the first part of the game,
yes, you create the sentence and then you modify the sentence.
And then the second part is, but so this is actually, I'm getting it. Okay. So everyone gets punctuation that's put in their hands. And then people will build sentences, but then maybe the sentences are given to other people. And then, so you build your sentence, but then you pass it to the right. And then you don't know if it's going to go, like there's a spinner or a die to figure out where it's going to go. And then you have to use your punctuation to try to adjust the sentence, and you're trying to use as much punctuation as possible. Or maybe even better yet, you put a special cards in the middle where you say, okay, I'm turning this to a real game. Okay, so you build the sentence, then you have these cards you put in the middle where it's like excited, sad, funny. Like you have to convey the sentence in a certain way. But you do one at a time. So first it's like funny, and then you get a handful of punctuation, then you put one thing in the sentence to make it funny. But then the next one's like excited, but then you got to use the same punctuation in the same sentence to adjust it so it's now funny before, and then you keep going, and then everyone votes
at the start
on
of the
it,
round,
like hands versus
at the start of the round, you are dealt a hand. Your hand includes one objective card that you keep secret, a certain number of word cards, and a certain number of punctuation cards. So at the start of the game, you know the words at your disposal, the punctuation at your disposal, and your objective card of what you want this sentence to be like at the end. The first player plays a word card because you have to start your sentence with a word. Everybody else builds the sentence together, or as the sentence becomes more formed, you start inserting the punctuation, and you win if you're at the end of playing your cards. And after you play a card, you draw a new card. And you win if the sentence meets your objective on your card. Like the objective could be the sentence has to express joy.
Mm-hmm.
So the trick, I'm going to put on my game designer hat. The trick to the Stevens idea, which also includes Jess's more specific rules on it, but even if we don't use those, is that it's a very subjective measurement. So
is Cards Against Humanity.
If I always think that everything that I wrote expresses joy because it's to my benefit because I score every time, everyone's like, I don't know, man. This thing about five families and their dogs died last weekend. Frowny face doesn't express joy. It's like, no, it's the joy of absurdity or something like that.
It's the joy of hating dogs.
But isn't I haven't played Cards Against Humanity in a very long time, but don't you, it's a very similar thing where you have to vote whether or not it is good or like
sort of.
Yeah.
It's the person who, it's like apples to apples.
Right.
So the person who did the card is the one who decides, and that can be a very serious problem if the person who played the original card does not know what the other things are that are on the cards. Like, for example, when I played it the first time, like my cousin was there and was playing, and so she played a card that said, in World War III, one of the dangerous things that will be sent out to fight will be. So I played the card Mecha Hitler, which was in my hand. And so she was reading around and she's like, Mecha, idea what that is. It can't be that. Everyone else at the table was like, come on, like Mecha Hitler would definitely be something that shows up in some hypothetical like World War scenario. And she wound up picking something that was unrelated because nobody else had a related card. So those games also, the way they do it is having one person who's the judge, which you could do here potentially if you have one judge player.
I don't know. I played it and we never had judges when I played. We would just do like everyone's quote would say yay, nay, or kind of give a good, bad, otherwise feel to it. I don't know. I think I'm getting close though. I think we're getting close to a real game.
Were you really playing the game? That's actually similar to. Does anyone here know the game Just One?
No.
Oh yeah, I know that game.
The party game Just One.
No.
So it has real rules, and I guess this can go back to Jess's question before. I'll ask you, Jess. When Paizo played Just One at the Paizo party, were they actually playing Just One? So
I played it.
When it was brought to a Paizo holiday party, that they brought it out. So Just One is a game where there's a single word you have to guess, and everybody else writes a single word on a whiteboard privately. Yeah. And if they have the exact same word or very close, like prince and princess, they get knocked down, and you get to see the surviving words, and then you try to guess the one word. And there's a certain number of cards that are dealt out in advance. If you pass, you just lose the current card. If you guess wrong, you lose that one and another card from the pile. And if you guess right, you get to keep the card and you count it up. So at the Paizo holiday party, people were like, well, just forget that. We're just going to just keep dealing cards. And we're not going to count a score. We're just going to do it. Were they playing Just One or not? Because when I later actually got, I didn't get Just One, but somebody else got Just One and was setting it up, and I was reading the rules, I was like, this was not even remotely what we did at the holiday party. There's all these rules about scoring and figuring things out. So were they playing Just One?
Yes.
Well,
they're playing
what I will say, like just off the top before I get into whether or not you were playing Just One, is that I also have never played Just One keeping score. We just go around until we get bored of playing.
Yeah, that's what the holiday party did.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no, I have played this game maybe like 10 times, and we never bother keeping score. We just go around until we're bored of playing Just One. And so, yeah, I would describe it as playing Just One.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know, by your previous definitions, when you were just trying to be spicy and maybe didn't agree with yourself 100%.
Yeah.
It feels like you almost kind of weren't. That would be like the analogy in football would be, what if you didn't get any points for touchdowns or field goals or any of that? You just kind of ran around the field and turned over the ball whenever you felt like it. And then at the end, it's just like we all got tired, so we stopped playing, and there wasn't a timer.
Well,
and if we asked if that would really be football, I would say definitely not.
Well, if me and some other people decided that we were going to take a ball and kick it between some like field goals and never touch the ball with our hands, but we're not going to be too concerned about who has succeeded more than the other. I would say that we're still playing soccer, even if we're not keeping score, because we're still following the rules of soccer, which is to not touch the ball with your hands and, whatever the other rules of soccer are.
I don't know. But there's no goalie, and you're just taking turns kicking into a goal. I don't even think you.
I mean, it's not a tournament.
I don't think you're playing soccer. I think you're doing goal kicks. That's different.
No, I mean, it's not a tournament legal game, but it's still playing.
So when I went to sleepaway camp, and in sleepaway camp, we invented the new game, and don't ask. So the guy who was in charge of us, the head counselor, his last name was Lepper. And it was like Tepper or something, or Lepper. And so anyhow, we came up with
his first name was Tepper and his last name was Lepper?
No. I can't remember. His last name was either Tepper or Lepper, but I think it was Tepper, but everyone called him Lepper because it was funnier. And keep on, I'm like a 10-year-old kid. So anyhow, we hey man, we're kids. It's the 80s. Things were rough back then.
That's what 10-year-old kids are like. I understand.
So anyhow, we invented a game called Leper Ball. And it actually was pretty good because we liked to play kickball, but then we took kickball and we used baseball. So instead, but we used a soccer ball. So it was a soccer ball that you had to pitch on a bounce, then you hit it with a baseball bat, and then you got the person out by taking the ball and throwing it, hitting them. So it was the combination of dodgeball and softball, except using instead of a softball. And it actually turned out to be a pretty balanced game. And we played it a lot. And not only that, because you can, as strong as you were, because you could hit that ball as hard as you wanted, it never really went that far. Even if you were even the counselors couldn't hit it that far. And if you caught it, you were out. So weirdly, if you hit it too far, then they would catch it and you'd be out. So you almost want to hit it on the ground, but then you can catch it and throw it at the person. But of course, you miss, it can go very far. So there's actually a lot of strategy to this game. So that, I could say, is a game. But is it softball? No. Is it dodgeball? No. Is it soccer because we did soccer ball? No. It's leper ball. It's our own game that we invented that actually had rules that we all played with for an entire summer. And we used to play, if you don't go to sleepaway camp, it's boys and girls are separated. And we used to play with the girls, and they were just as good at it as we were. It was actually a very balanced game. It was very fun to play. And that, I would say, is, quote, a game. But it's our own game.
Oh, it's obviously a game.
Right.
The question was it the game that Jess described of just kicking into goals and taking turns and not keeping score? Is that
not
soccer?
No. Because soccer has very specific rules.
I would say no. Someone in the chat said no.
No, it's not.
It is definitely a game. It's 100% a game.
All right.
You'd have to be wild to say it's not a game.
I want to focus in on the title of the stream. Because the title of the stream is Do the Rules Even Matter?
Well, the official rules. So the reason I said that is because right now there's a lot of controversy over using the 2014 and 2024 rules, by the way.
Okay. Well, anyway, in terms of whether or not the rules of the game you're playing matter, I think that's the context of all of my earlier statements, and not the context of adjudicating whether or not you are playing a specific game.
Oh, I see.
That's very fair.
Yes.
Fair enough. Like I've said before, I'm so much in favor of modding your game and doing something else. Let me be clear. The just one game we played at the Paizo holiday party was fun, even though it was not just one the normal way. It was like a mod homebrew, infinite just one, and that was totally fine. That worked great, and I'm in favor of it. So I think we decided earlier that the rules do matter because they're the framework by which everything else sort of is defined, but that doesn't mean that you are stuck with them. You can always change them, and you should, if that makes the game better for everybody, whether that is just one or another published board game, whether that's a sports game. Like Steven talked about the ball game that they made at his camp when I was, long ago, when I was in elementary school, we played Foursquare, which was, I don't know if anybody plays that anymore on the playground, but we also had tons of variant rules. Like Foursquare is apparently like a game that is, or it was at the time, played in different places. Have you guys ever heard of Foursquare,
Yeah,
or
I've
was
heard
it
of
just
it.
regional?
No, I've heard of it.
Yeah,
Is
okay. You got these
Foursquare the one where you have a pole in the middle with a ball?
No, that's tetherball.
Oh.
Four
Okay.
squares, you have 4 squares and you have the ball and like you hit it through into the other person's side and then out to like get them out. And there's like a 1 space that's like the king of the first place and the 2, 3, 4, and you get demoted down if you go out and you're trying to take the first spot away from the person there. But
it's like Squid Game with less death.
What?
It's like Squid Game with less death. So.
Yeah, but we had like dozens of variant rules in our elementary school of like things where we had like if you said like bus stop versus which or something like that, everyone had to put their foot in the center or the outside of the square instead of throwing the ball. And electricity was a thing that if you had the ball, you could like walk around the outside of the square and then throw it from somewhere else. And those are just ones I remember off the top of my head from elementary school. But the point is, were we playing Foursquare, the traditional sport? Obviously not. But we were playing like that one elementary school's variant version of Foursquare.
Yeah, but I think all games, like think about Uno. Someone mentioned it before. Like I used to play Uno a huge amount, and we had so many rules that we added to Uno to make it crazy. Like it wasn't Uno by the end. It was just like using Uno cards with loose Uno rules and like 10,000 variant rules.
What you're talking about sounds a lot like Mao, the card game that is basically Uno at the start, except for that you add a bunch of different rules.
Oh, I don't know.
Some of which are standard rules.
No, we
that
just made these up.
By tradition, to be jerks and not fun for new players, you don't tell the new players what they are.
No, we tell everyone the rules.
No, I know. I'm talking about Mao now. The card game Mao. It's Uno, but there's like about 4 or 5 standard rules that are assumed to be in play, but that you don't tell new players because the people who made up the game are jerks. And then there's also at the end of each round, when you win the round, you are meant to add another secret rule that you then also don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And the only way you tell them is you enforce it by making them draw cards when they break the rule. And then they're supposed to guess and figure out what rule you added to the game based on when they're forced to draw. And then they sometimes can be like, I think Jess is supposed to draw now. Like another person, is that right? And you ask the rule maker, like, you're correct. Jess is supposed to draw. I should have caught that.
I've heard of that. Well, I will tell you when rules do matter. And that is, I'm trying to remember where I read this. It was there's a book about professional Scrabble players that came out. It was like 20 years ago. It was a very popular book, and it was pretty interesting. And it's about actually it was about this guy. If anyone knows the name of this book, who was a journalist who got into the world of professional Scrabble, and then he wanted to learn how to become a professional Scrabble player. And they're like, well, first thing, you got to learn all the 2-letter words. And he goes through it and he documents him like becoming a professional Scrabble player. And then he has to learn like all the 3-letter words and 4-letter words. And I don't know if you've ever seen, there's like the world champion of Scrabble entered the French tournament of Scrabble and won because he memorized the freaking dictionary. And he never spoke a word of French. Now that is insane. But one of the guys who was also the world champ at Scrabble was also a world champ in Monopoly. And he said that his very first game of like Monopoly in a tournament, the very first turn, because he knew the rules perfectly, his opponent did something incorrect because I guess he was using a homebrew rule that he forgot, and immediately called over the judge, and he won the game in the very first turn because he did something, quote, incorrect, because there's so many variants of Monopoly that he got confused, even though it was a tournament, and within 5 seconds, he won the game. So there's an example of, yes, the rules do matter, like in a tournament.
Well, yeah, that goes back to what Jess said
No, I
before,
know.
which is if
Right.
you're playing tournament play,
Right.
you're playing especially strictly competitive, but even more so if it's tournament or if it's for like some kind
You
of
gotta look up this
professional league or something
It's
like
really
that,
good.
then you have to enforce the rules very strictly then.
Man, what is this book called? Man, learn.
I have to say though,
Wow.
a Monopoly tournament sounds like the worst possible thing that I can imagine needing to do with my time.
I think
Word
that if,
freak, that's what it's
Sartre
called,
were
by the
still
way.
around, he might have added a Monopoly tournament to no exit
Yeah.
in terms of like his depiction of hell.
By the way,
Because
Yeah.
Word freak. This book was really, it's 2002. Wow, it's been a long time. Word freak. Heartbreak, triumph, genius, and obsession in the world of competitive Scrabble players. Strongly recommend this book. It's a very fun, very easy read. It's just fun. It's fascinating because he actually learns to become like a very strong Scrabble player. And then there was all these Scrabble documentaries at the exact same, like Scrabble documentaries and like becoming a professional Scrabble player was a big thing in the early 2000s. I don't know why. But yeah, so check that book out. I think you'll like it.
So Steven, how many likes are we at on this video?
50. It's just
50.
pathetic.
Wow, it's like your viewers don't even have thumbs.
No, they don't have thumbs. They don't have. I haven't said that in like a year. By the way, I used to say it all the time. I was like, "Do you not have thumbs?" No, they don't. They are.
Wow.
My viewers
thumbless.
hate us. They hate you, Jess. They never want you on the
Yeah.
show again. Obviously.
Well, it's too bad for them. It's my show.
Oh,
yeah.
well, that's right.
Jess is the one who decides whether to have us on the show, Steven.
Wow.
She's
Yeah,
allowed
that's
us
true.
to be on the show for some of the times when she can't show up, like most
Yeah.
weeks.
Do you guys even have thumbs? So, what is your favorite thing about? So, Leshy's Dragons is
Mhm.
almost done.
Yeah.
It's like it's 99%
It's
done.
got 2 pieces of art.
2 pieces of
and
art
We
and
have a few
one
test
page.
readers that I'm going to be putting in probably some of their feedback tomorrow because I gave the other ones time that they were like, we want to do it,
Oh,
but they
no.
haven't gotten back to me
Don't
yet.
put it in because you don't have the right file. You got to tell me because I.
Oh, well, there we go. I will. Tomorrow, I will shake Steven down for the correct file.
No,
and
I'm
then
like way past that. But like, yeah, you would be editing a file like a month old. You'd probably tell because you'd be like, "Where's everything?" Because that one's like
No,
totally
Steven, I knew that you moved into another file, so
I
I'll
understand.
need you to open the patient of only the section that we gave to the test readers.
So what's your
because I may have to do some significant finagling there, and then also that index
Finagling.
at the end that you
Yes, we have to
mentioned
do
that
the
was
index.
not fully determined, and the finagling may adjust the pages of the index anyway.
That's fine. What is your favorite thing with the Leshy Dragons? The Leshy Dragons are pretty interesting. Because we never answer the question when Leshies do they die? Aren't they immortal spirits?
Oh no, the answer to the question of what happens to Leshies is in the Pathfinder lore, which is they come from this sort of life force of
Right.
nature
Right.
that you can consider it to be like akin to like in the movie Avatar when the whole world has this shared life force that's connected in some way.
Right.
But
watch.
usually they're just this disembodied life force. They come into this little body and they live for a time and then they return back to that shared life force.
Right.
And even if that same piece gets embodied again, it may or may not have some of the memories from the last time. It may have none. It may have almost all of them. That's actually up to the player or the GM to decide what's interesting for the plot. There's not like a mechanic where it's like make a will save to see how many memories you have or something like
So
that.
do Leshy Dragons do the same thing? Are they also part of that life force? Or do we not know?
So,
Mark, how did that turn out?
yeah. So like that kind of question, the description of the Leshy Dragons was not something that was in like the remit for the part that Jess was writing, which were about the individual types of Leshy Dragons. That's actually why we asked Val from Corkboards and Curiosities, who did the ad at the beginning of this episode. She's actually an author on Leshy Dragons as well. She wrote like, if you watched her channel at all, she's great at like making the connections and sort of like figuring out the implications of different things that are in fantasy world. That's like the whole corkboards and the connections. And so that's something that when I asked her to write an intro, she's like, this is really important. Like, where did they come from originally? Were they like leshies that became dragons, dragons that became leshies? Were they created by a ritual, like the ritual? And so she decided that it'd be fun to have our draconic scholar, Calazandrax, who's kind of the narrator of these books, go on like a field study where he went around to try to figure it out. And the answer is, we're not sure where the first Leshy dragons came from, but nowadays they can have children, and so they are somewhat more embodied into the real, the mortal world than Leshies are. But yet, when they're born, sometimes like some Leshies just spontaneously manifest without the ritual, which implicates like certain features of the magic, and often like the dragons of the community like have those leshies like almost partially raise the dragon as caretakers and information givers, and they consider those leshies, even though they may be these little guys, to possess this great wisdom, and even these mighty dragons sort of respect them. So there's a lot of interesting hints and clues, but still some mystery into the initial origin. With like, I think that Val had like two main theories, and there were pros and cons of why some scholars believe theory A and some believe theory B.
Yeah, I wrote a little bit about some of the Leshy dragons and the relationships that they have with Leshies, and the way that like a Leshy being an immortal thing and the dragon having existing on kind of a different scale of time, or relating to the concept of death differently, would be like a friction point in that relationship. Like, if you're living in an immortal forest surrounded by immortal forest spirits, do you kind of just take on that same attitude towards life as the rest of your surroundings do? And does that kind of promote the dragon trying to remain unchanging, even though they are changing in a way that the immortal forest spirits around them might not be?
You can see that or at least I can see that in the way that you interrogated each of the 5 different heritages of dragon and their interactions with the people and world around them. Like, our boreal dragons are often like, I'll protect this natural area. They're very in tune with the place that is around them. Whereas harvest dragons almost they go through like a dichotomy of withdrawing from society, but then sometimes massively going out there for a giant celebration or party, and maybe then they go back in their little lair for the rest of the year planning the next one. Whereas kelp dragons are one-upping each other with art, and their sense of rivalry is this deeper connection even than like friendship or family in some ways, where they're so close to their rival, and so on and so on. I don't have to go over all 5 of them, but each of them, like the floral dragon was even closer to what you were saying there of their take on death and the beyond.
Yeah, we're almost done. We have one after this. All we got left is battle dragons.
That's right.
Finally done with this very long project. It's pretty fun though, I have to say. No one doesn't like dragons. Who doesn't like dragons? I'm gonna show. I have some art I would show Jess that I didn't show you of the splash page, but
oh yeah, that splash page is really good.
But my computer.
Are you gonna put it up for everybody or just Jess?
I'm trying, but I'm gonna get into it. My computer. Does anyone else have this Dropbox just updated itself and like said, "Oh, we need to relink everything"? And ever since then, my computer has been really, really slow. And I just restarted. I figured it out. It took me a few times, but I restarted my computer and turned off Dropbox, and it was fine. It literally takes 30 seconds to a minute for a folder to open on Dropbox now, which obviously is beyond unacceptable, because I'm like, I can't wait a minute for a freaking folder to open. So
well, I don't have the splash page right on hand, but I'll send Jess this random bard art that you
I'm getting it. I'm just waiting for my folder to open. I literally clicked on the folder. I'm still waiting for it to open. If anyone else has this issue, I'm about to get in contact with them. I actually thought it was Chrome. That was the issue, but I just
This is so good.
Yeah, the
This
Bard
is
is awesome.
delightful.
no, that one's pretty good. Wait, I'm gonna
It's
show you.
really good. Agile Monk sent a member chat. For the record, I always give RFC a thumbs up. I have thumbs and a brain too.
All right, come on, hurry up. Try to. Oh,
yeah,
it opened.
The art that is coming in for Leshy Dragons is fantastic. And Jess, this one doesn't have the little Leshies, but so many of them just have like really funny looking little Leshies that are
That's not
all sorts of
bad.
different ones in the area.
Oh, that's
There.
wonderful.
There, that's the one I sent you. There, Jess.
Of course, nobody else can see this Bard and this like arboreal
I mean, I can
elemental
show
avatar with a Snapdragon
I
thing,
can
but
show
the splash
it.
page is even better than these.
Hold on, I can show
Oh.
it. It says it has the wrong person as Derek's name instead. But, hold on, I can show this. Give me a
It has Derek.
It's okay. I can be Derek for a little bit.
second. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Hold on. I
So,
can show it
Derek,
looks
what
like.
tier would you give to
Oh,
to
there we
the
go.
Jubensha? Was it an S tier Jubensha or an A tier?
Well, so the thing about the Jubensha is that there were no cute creatures. So that
Is everyone a
definitely won
human?
it. Everyone was a human,
Well,
and
then
it
you'd
was
like it, right,
grounded
Derek?
in reality. I liked that about it.
Oops.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give the Jubensha. I'm gonna put it solidly in A tier. I haven't tried out a lot of other Jubensha, so it's difficult to calibrate my tier listing because I don't have others to compare it against. So I don't think there was anything about my experience of the Jubensha that was too extraordinary and that has ruined other Jubenshas for me in the future. So I'm not going to put it in S tier because I do feel like I can enjoy future Jubenshas just fine. There was nothing by the same merit in the Jubensha that didn't function.
Okay.
So it doesn't
So
need. Actually, maybe
if it's A tier, that means that it is
I might
top
actually. I
top
might
tier,
actually
but
put
not
it
in
in
a
B
broken
tier.
way.
Yeah, it's not broken. I think actually I'm gonna move it to B tier.
So
That
there's-
sounds like how Derek
yeah.
would rank things based on the way that you describe the Jubensha, because he would put S as like it's so strong it's broken and it
Mhm.
messes things up. A is
Yeah.
it's so strong it's a must take, which could be a problem for your table, but is not actually going to break anything. And B
Mhm.
is it's just overall solid, not enough to be a must
so
take.
there's the picture of that's the end
Oh,
page.
everybody got the picture. Also, we got a super chat from Dave and Perry that said often played board game without the rules page.
There's what it looks like. And this other one, that's not a Leshy Dragon, but
Yeah, that's fun. I like the little
there's the
leshies that are
crystal.
running at the bottom of the picture.
Yeah, the little Leshies are running away, and the Leshy dragons are like, "We'll deal with this, little Leshies."
and here's the crystal. This one's like probably one of my favorite pieces of art, like ever.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that crystal dragon is superb.
Yeah.
Someone asked about that. Someone asked if we were doing crystal dragons. I think in this chat. And so yeah, so we have
We've got them.
we got them. We got
We've got
great
'em.
worm crystal dragon, and
Just run those two.
the funny thing
primal
is
dragons.
the crystal dragons spend so much time looking at themselves that they're just too busy. They're just too busy admiring their own reflections and how beautiful they are all the time.
That's right. This
That
one
was
is
a big
looking
part
off
of
the
it.
screen, or like to the left, but we don't know. There might be like a mirror.
There's a
over
lot
there.
of mirrors, right? They literally live in halls of mirrors.
So I can explain this. The thing that's off screen from the picture is a second crystal dragon that this crystal dragon is looking at, but they're looking at their reflection in the crystals of the other dragon.
There you go. It's like Crystal Dragon Romance is like, other dragon's name. I can see my reflection in your scales, and that's like supposed to be a romantic thing to say because it means that they're just so vain that's a good thing. It's like I can see my reflection in your scales. That's what's great about you.
So that is what's great about the other crystal dragon, but you don't really want to phrase it that way when you say it to a crystal dragon. The more romantic phrasing would be to present a kind of appropriately shaped section of your own crystals for the other dragon to admire themselves in. That's the more romantic gesture.
This is.
I see.
Oh, actually, this is Leshy's. This is Leshy's battling a battle dragon. Actually, it's a Leshy dragon versus a battle dragon. And then we have Leshy's versus a giant Venus.
The Leshy
fly
Dragon
trap.
versus the Battle Dragon is the classic Rage of Elements cover authors battle. Who will win between Jess and the Leshy Dragons and the Battle Dragons from Sen HHS.
Whoops. And then we have them fighting. It's kind of Venus flytrap-esque creature that they're fighting. And then last is them in their... Oh, actually, I have another funny one. So them in their garden, the floral dragons and a harvest dragon. But my favorite one, not my favorite, but one of my favorite ones is... who's the silver dragon's name? I forgot.
Razanavash.
Yeah, and they get the reports.
Oh yeah, this one's great. Calzendrick sent back the notes from that field study that Val was writing about.
Right.
But either we can't tell from this picture. Either Calzendrick sent back on purpose a few Leshies in there to show Razanavash, or they stowed away with the notes and the research material that were in there, and now they're all throughout Razanavash's lair, just doing things.
Now they're making a mess, and it's just like, oi.
And Razanavash is reading the document, and what I like about the detail there is that it has the same style of art as the pages of the book that are meant to have been written by Calzendrick, with that slightly browner sketch art. Because Calzendrick supposedly drew those ones.
Yeah, all that is.
And so it looks like
he draws.
It looks like she is reading the report from him.
Yeah.
Well, Derek Melinda, think that these fun little guys in this illustration are going too far.
No, that's true. Derek would be like, oi, a whole book on Leshies? Ugh. Leshy dragons?
So, Leshies are a bridge too far for me. Leshy dragons, that's kind of reining it in a little bit. I can better contextualize how these exist in my fantasy world. So, Leshy dragons, they're okay. Leshies, though, absolutely not.
It's too much. So, for those waiting for the books...
Mark T sent a super chat that said, the Dragon PDF are great so far. I cannot wait for the books.
Here is the first one. Fairy Dragons is
very exciting.
This is the...
special editions just look so good. We had someone in the Discord chat the other day who got their special edition finally. I think they might have been in Canada or somewhere where it just takes a while.
Yeah, Canada, Jess. Well, they had a... Well,
and they were like,
so
wow, this special edition looks so much better when I got it than when Steven showed it on the videos.
No, it's insane.
They say it looked better in person. I actually don't know because I haven't received this special edition from the new version of special editions yet, but they look so good to me even on the video.
Well, these I only have a limited because I have only a very small number. The one I can send you Classic Creatures, because that actually is it.
Yeah, I haven't received the special edition of that, but it looks great even on the video.
Yeah, this one came out good. And then we have one of every dragon type.
So Not a Cat, I assure you, sent $2 Canadian and said, show the witch hat and I'll like the video, Jessica.
Okay, I'll be back. I'll go get the witch hat.
The witch hat. Oh, right.
I'll go get the witch hat.
The witch hat from previous times. There we go.
That's your go-to. That's your go-to, by the way. Everyone has a go-to. Yours is there we go. You know that?
Mine is there we go. I thought mine was however.
No, it's there we go. You say that a lot. You say that an awful lot. Everyone has one or two.
However.
Or 10. However, there we go. There we go, however.
All right.
I always say
all right was one of mine.
It is. You know, so is this something that that people are aware of? So that every single Paizo book, I've said it before, and you've heard me say it 100 times, has one word in it that is in every single Paizo book. It's oh crap. What's the word? Driving me crazy.
Is the word Paizo?
No.
Is it duh?
No. It's a weird word. It's a very rare word, but everyone machinations. Every
book has machinations?
Yes, I always find it. And sometimes I'm like, it's the weirdest thing. They all have it. Like
That
once.
reminds me of a weird coincidence that then became a running gag, although unfortunately the OGL crisis killed it off, which was the water genies, which I'm sure Jess would love to be talking about genies with us if she wasn't not getting her witch hat. But the water genies back in D&D land and in the OGL are called marids. All right. And so there's not a lot in the lore Lost Omen books that needs to be cited from the OGL because it's not from like the main reference document, but it's instead from like the Tome of Horrors or some other side thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But when I was working as the rules guy on those books, we kept finding that married was in them. It was in the first one. It was in the second one. It was in the third one and the fourth one by accident. And then eventually it just became a running gag. So we were just like, okay, like we might as well just include it every time. Especially since then, while we were saying that, we looked at the fifth one and it was in there too because there were like genie horses and they were from a marriage. So we wound up becoming a running gag that every Lost Omens book had a married and cited married. That way they didn't have to remove it from a template of the OGL in the back.
There you go.
And now
Jess?
you know the secret.
How big is her
married.
place? How big is her place? I mean, she's been gone for a while. It's like it's just to go like to another country. Yeah,
I mean, she is in another country,
I know,
Steven.
but I know, but just to go get to another. Well, the thing with, I feel bad for everyone in Canada because Canada's mail was on strike for a month, and that was during December, of course.
Yeah, well, that's when they have the most leverage. I think that was a smart move to go on strike,
except
during the time when they had the most leverage.
I know, but they had such a.
It's definitely not good for the
Well,
the
do you know
people
how
who did
long-
not get their mail.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it might take them like a year to catch up because you go just you know how long it'll take to catch up on mail. Like after like people now people are like, oh, I didn't get my stuff. I'm like, we sent it in November, but you know, first it was held up, and now they're catching up, and it could take months for them to catch up. So I feel bad for those people. Now
I mean,
Spain,
it did end like at least a week before Christmas, though. I think.
Yeah, it didn't matter because it takes months to catch up, and Spain has,
and it was like almost a month-long stoppage. I think nearly an entire month.
Yeah, I think Spain now has a mail strike or
Spain. I thought you were saying May because that's when they might resume the strike if they don't figure things out.
No, Spain. It was like because this is why delivering books. It's
tricky. It's an addiction you just can't stop, Steven. You're going to deliver a new book soon.
I know.
Oh, there's the witch hat. Look.
All right.
Don't worry. You only
witch hat.
Our genie marriage discussion.
Oh, I heard it. I can't believe I was never given an assignment on a Lost Omens book where my assignment was like write about this district of Absalom, also include marids. It's extremely rude.
Oh, well, you know what?
Extremely rude.
Lost Omens, Absalom, City of Lost Omens, Pathfinder, Absalom, Lost Omens, Lost Omens, whatever the actual name was, because it had too many Lost Omens in it. That was a special book that didn't come out in the same order. It may not have had marriage. I'm not sure. I don't count it in the normal numbering scheme, even though it theoretically might have been like 4 or 5 if it came out on time.
Look at you.
All right, so this hat, I'm gonna have to take my headphones off to like actually put it on.
Got it.
So one moment.
It's very funny. Wow. Never seen. Oh, wow. There we go. See, we don't have anything like that. I don't know about you, Mark. Oh, I have my sword. That's about as close as I get.
You have your sword?
I have my sword. That's about as close as I get to the cosplay.
So
those who haven't seen it.
Linda has her Abigail Thrune crown from when she did an Abigail Thrune cosplay.
And she yelled at me as Abigail.
Yeah,
she yelled at you as Abigail?
Oh,
there
you
go.
Yeah, big time.
I received this hat from someone that I went to broadsword classes with. Because he did leatherworking, and so he made this hat, but it ended up being too small to fit on his head comfortably, and I have a small head, and so I was offered this hat if I would like it in exchange for a contributor copy of the first volume of Strength of Thousands, I think.
That
And so
leather?
I
That thing is
traded
that
a
looks
Paizo book for this hat.
that is very thick. That hat. It looks like
Yeah.
it can
Well,
really do damage.
it's made from vegetable tan leather.
Wow.
It's really nice.
It's funny. So
but-
this sword I bought, I was like Etsy, and it's rubber. You can like use it, and
Mhm.
it's obviously with Stormbringer,
Right.
and it looks so good. And I bought this, and then I waited, and it's one of those things how I totally forgot I bought it, and it was coming from like France. And then, like, a year later, something shows up. Like, what is this? And my kids are like, what's in there? And I pull up the sword, like, what is that? I'm like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot I bought this. And look at this thing. It's so big. I mean, this thing is like,
Yeah.
like
It's
3
pretty
feet
cool.
long. It's really good. It's very impressive.
Jess, I think you got a good deal on that trade,
That's a
even though
good deal.
even though Strength of Thousands Book 1 is, I think, maybe the only Adventure Path volume that I have a freelance contributor credit to, in addition to any other like within Paizo credits on. So has a special place in my heart. But I still think that you made out better on that trade.
Oh, definitely. I might have actually bought the hat. It might have been. I also have a pair of gloves that he made that were too small. And it might have been the gloves that I traded for Strength of Thousands Volume 1. I might have bought the hat for like actual dollars. I don't remember.
Your
Okay.
tiny frame.
But one of them I purchased in exchange for currency, and the other ones I bartered Paizo books for.
Your tiny frame has gotten you free.
Well, the
gifts.
gloves actually, they're like little gloves for ants. They're actually genuinely quite small, and I need to soak them in water and then wear them to stretch them out. And I haven't quite gotten around to it yet. But they are really nice gloves.
Up satisfaction at last.
Oh, yeah. He says I paid for the hat and the gloves for the trade. No, I can't show the gloves right now. I knew where the hat was because it's with the rest of my LARP gear, but the gloves, I'm not quite certain where in the house they exactly are right now. I know where they used to be when I was planning on like stretching them out. And then I waited so long to stretch them out that they are no longer in the kitchen next to the sink.
So I'm going to wrap this up by one thing, Jess. I'm going to ask something of you. You go to Gen Con next year. You gotta rope me into a LARP. Not one of your like 3-day LARPs that you do, but like, because I used to LARP and do Vampire the Masquerade, and it takes me a little while, but once I get into it, I'm pretty good. So I haven't done it in a very long time.
You don't have to go to all 3 days of the 3-day LARP. You can just go to one of the days. Okay. Not everyone goes to all 3 days.
Got it. I would be. See, I wouldn't want to do it with someone. I don't want to do it by myself. Because that, I think, is, even for me, Mr. Outgoing, even for me, it's a little intimidating. Because, I don't know. See, Mark, I'm not totally out there. It's like business stuff and like marketing and conventions. I'm like totally out there.
So good at getting out there. That is my weakness, because I always assume that any random person does not want to talk to me or deal with me unless they, like a vampire, invite me in.
I'm pretty good at like that stuff. I'm good at, but like LARPing and it's like I used to do it, but it's I don't know. I haven't done
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, that's the best definition. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I think you need some backup friends to do that with. I'm sure you have a whole gang by now you go with.
I mean, there are a lot of people that go to this Gen Con LARP that I hang out with now outside of the LARP. Like, there's after I won Changeling, some of the other Changeling players and I started up a like regular TTRPG Changeling game that we've been playing in, and so it's been very fun.
Did you win last year or no?
Well, yes, because last year I joined. The definition of success is different for last year than it was previously. Nadine Holiday, heir to the Holiday Inn fortune, was crowned the Winter King of New Orleans. I completed most of my regicides, and I took the crown, and I ascended to my kingdom. And so that was the marker for success for Nadine, the regicides and becoming the new king. The marker for success last year, because I joined the staff and I was playing an NPC villain, was, did everybody end the session last year all scheming up plans of how they're going to murder the villain I played? And the answer is yes, so I won. They all very much want to kill me more than they want to kill any of the other vampire like NPC opponents. I'm the number one on the hit lists, and that.
No, I really want to
What more
play.
could I possibly ask for?
Because anything like this, I definitely want to play. Because now I'm pretty good at these PvP. It's so funny. I hate PvP, but when it comes to games like this, I'm very much into it and really like it. I said to Derek that just made fun of you for like 5 minutes on the stream, and he wrote back and said, "Awesome."
Yeah.
Derek's he's a good sport.
He'll enjoy my performance.
Oh, he'll love it.
He can do a Jessica Redicott performance next time he's on the show.
Derek will tell you that the most accurate part of Jess's impression of him was the fact that she was making fun of him, because he always makes fun of himself. In fact, the most inaccurate thing was that she never, because it would probably be too impolite to do it if you're not Derek. She never trashed his channel, which Derek constantly does.
Oh, that's true. That's true. At no point.
No point did you say.
No
be like, well, or you could do my channel where nobody watches it, because I choose to do the things that nobody wants to see. Like he always
true.
does.
That is a classic
I
Derek.
will tell you, because he and I'm always, because he reviews and talks about the strangest role-playing games in history.
But it's awesome.
Oh, it is awesome. But I found one. I got my new version of Game Trade magazine. Okay. And there's one in here, and I sent it to him, and I said, "You got to do this." And even he's like, "No, hold on."
Okay, what is it?
I'm looking it up.
Is that why he says no?
Yes, because even he's like, "Oh, here it is. Look up the Green Oaks RPG."
Okay.
While you're looking it up, I'm going to read the description.
I've not heard of the Green Oaks RPG. That sounds a priori like something that...
Green Oaks is a role-playing game where each player takes the role of an elder living in Green Oaks, a charming greenery-surrounded structure. Rumors swirl that great treasures are hidden in this basement, though some believe the entire building is actually an alien base conducting experiments on its elderly residents. Local youths whisper that the structure is built over an ancient Native American cemetery, while others say that it's the very mouth of hell.
Wait, so it says on this thing that it's a sci-fi comedy slasher ghost thing?
It's a role-playing game where you play an elderly person in a retirement home that has a dark secret. There you go. I was like, I've heard of a lot of role-playing games in my life. That's a new one. There you go. And the funny, look at the art, the cover. It looks like it looks like a retirement brochure. Are you looking at it? Yeah, green. I never heard of this, and it's coming out. It's out now. Green Oaks RPG. It's only $18, and that's for the physical copy, so it's cheap. But yeah, I love reading Game Trade because I always see things here like, what the hell? It's like, because they list every single game you could ever imagine. There's some pretty good ones. They also have another one called Last Resort. This company, MS Zidon.
Sounds like Green Oaks is putting the elder in elder signs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's on
their website,
so weird. I might have to play
the pieces of media that they describe as like, if you like this, you'll like Green Oaks. One of them that they include is Bubba Hotep, which, yeah,
Bubba Hotep. Oh my god,
Bubba Hotep.
That is not a good movie, but it's not even a funny movie.
How dare you?
It's a movie.
How dare you?
It's a movie. It's a movie. How dare I?
How
because
dare
it's a piece of crap. It's a piece of crap.
Oh my god.
Well, because there's like good, bad. You ever listen to it's my favorite new podcast that I listen to. Hold on. It's where they they weekly go through movies and they say, is it a good movie, a good bad movie, a bad movie, or a bad good movie? And the Flophouse. Holy crap. I never laughed so hard in my life. These guys are so funny, so smart, so fast. And every week they review really, really bad movies. And that's the end. It's like, is it a good bad, or bad good? And a lot of them are just bad. So, Bubba Hotep. I mean, it's not good bad. It's not bad bad. It's like bad good. Like it's not great, but they're trying. So I give it that.
So the super chat from Not a Cat I Assured You, who asked about the hat, is satisfaction at last. Now you paid for the hat. The gloves are a trade. Now show gloves.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
So it seems like this person really knows.
Oh yeah,
which
no,
one's a
that's
trade.
right. No, that's the person I did broadsword with.
Okay.
Made the hat. That is
That's
the
the person who
that is
traded.
the
Like
yeah.
I was getting the
Yeah, yeah.
impression that it was
Yeah.
was
No, that's him.
It was either that or someone who you directly told and was sure that their memory was right.
No, this is
I see. So the
maker
person
of
who
the hat.
initially asked for the hat to come out was the creator of the hat.
That's why he knows that the hat is in my possession.
So by the way, hopefully the Living Legends hardcover book Kickstarter comes out in well, less than 3 weeks. I better hope. I mean, it's just approved by Kickstarter, and I just wrote them because I asked them, can you guys import something for me? And then they literally wrote me back a form letter like, oh, you can import. There's a button. And I'm like, really? I've done like 10 Kickstarters and I never noticed that freaking import button before. Because right now I've been putting in like every add-on by hand and they're like, import.
Oh no,
I know.
Steven.
I know. That's bad UI design though. It's so easy to miss. It's just like because they have white buttons with white text. Like it's just not white text. It's like a white button with a black. It looks like a square. It's like, dude, freaking make it look like a button. I hate. They're actually UI. I can go off on a tangent. They have bad UI design for their buttons.
You're
Not for
right,
the overall thing.
but-
Their UI is terrible for buttons.
Yeah, the back end
Just
for
buttons.
the creators has some stuff. But
Yes.
if anybody was on the fence is thinking, should I get in now into these RFC Kickstarters? What is going on? Steven made like a mimic chest one time. He's doing all these things.
Yes.
If you are wondering, this is a good time to start because Steven is getting. It seems even wilder in all of the things that he's like adding on. So what I have determined is what?
What's the deal with? So I googled Living Legends, and
Yes.
it's brought me to legends.rollforcombat.com, where there are these pictures of these cups.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you
What
put
is
down
happening
$1,
here?
you will get that cup
You get it.
in
You get that
addition
cup.
to your book.
Yes.
And but that is far from the only potential
For $1,
like promotional
you get a
/ free
cup.
thing that you might be able to get. Because just wait until it happens. Because Steven often does things for like early pledges or for other things. I figured this out, and it's possible you'll be able to stack on like multiple awesome things for this one. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Just go to Legends.
It's a goblet.
It's a goblet.
And
It's
it has a metal goblet inside that dragon
You can
thing, so
drink
you don't
it.
have to worry about drinking from like a weird plastic dragon thing. So that it is a very legit dragon goblet.
Yeah.
And is this like you're gonna ship this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you put down $1 now, and then you actually back at least the minimum physical tier where you get the book,
Okay.
then you just get this goblet
You just get it.
for no additional add-on or anything like that.
Yeah.
And depending on when you back and other factors, you may get other free goodies too.
Yep. I give away. This is our new thing. So it's basically it helps us get a better count because like right now if you do things like on BackerKit or Kickstarter and you have people quote like it, something like less than like 1% of the people actually back it, which is not good because it's like I got 10,000 likes and then you get like 10 people to back it. So
whereas because you're putting $1 down on it, just a large number
Extremely
of people will actually back it, which allows you to predict how many people will back it, which allows you to set the tiers. You can potentially lower the prices somewhat because you're going to get more people in certain ways, and it's better for the backers and the people running it if you have a better estimate, and it's the best way to get a good estimate.
Yeah, and some people are against it because they're like, "Oh, you have to put down $1 and you get this and you get that," and they're against
some people
it.
have a concern, which is legitimate, that they're saying that like it may be like psychologically it makes you feel like you're going to miss out on something, and that is a legitimate concern about that. But I feel like because of the fact that it's helping like us estimate, it's helping people get lower prices and more things, that it's more for like the cause of good in this case. I'm sure it could be used manipulatively in other ways, but that's not what we're trying to do.
And I'm not putting down other people who do this, but some of them will give out like a pin, or something like that. I mean, this
Even your mimic was better than what people thought.
I know, but the goblet costs a little bit more than $1. Like, it's an actual ceramic goblet with a silver lining inside that you could take out to clean so you can drink from it. And then
the inside part fully comes out for cleaning it?
Yes.
So the inside part, like,
can
it go in the dishwasher?
Yes.
Oh my god.
I know. That's why I was like, this isn't like some crappy thing. So, and then someone said,
even like the mimic, like half the people that get it,
everyone
that put a response are just like, I thought this was like going to be some low quality plastic thing that just looked cool. Yeah. And when I got it, it's this hefty thing and it's metal and it's like very sturdily made of quality parts. And they were like, since they got it for free, they were just like, I assumed it was going to be like, whatever, just going to be made to as cheap as possible. It's like, no, Steven is always just going wild on these high quality add-ons. Yeah. It's fun.
Well, that's the thing. And I'm also looking for things that no one else has. I mean, this was made. Like, I literally designed this. So this is not like you can find this anywhere else. And then...
no, this goblet is wild.
Yeah. And there's 3 different... Well, someone asked, like, because I had purple. Yeah. And they're like, oh, can you do different colors? And I talked to the manufacturer. They're like, yeah. So these are the colors they have. They have actually others. They'll do anything because they make them.
Yeah.
But I like 3 is enough. Like 3 is good. So, but we're gonna add some pretty insane stuff to the Kickstarter. Like at the higher tiers, we're adding some like.
I'm so excited about this. First of all, it's just cool. I love the swag, and second of all, since it's not additional books, that means that it doesn't affect our production ability to make things. While still giving people awesome stuff, it's like the best of both worlds.
Derek showed up.
Oh, Derek has thrown the gauntlet.
Start dissing. Just start throwing down.
His super chat says, "Okay, Redicop, we have to fight at Gen Con now."
I said okay.
All right.
I don't know. I think that's an unfair fight because Derek is gigantic, and
Derek's gonna lose.
Derek
for sure,
is huge, and Jess is not.
I want to point this out though, because
listen, not a cat. I need to start coming back to broadsword classes so that I can beat Derek in a fight at Gen Con.
There you go. True. First of all, one of the 2 of them has taken broadsword classes. Second of all, that same person is the one from the Shadow Plane. And Fae are not always as big as you think to be dangerous, right? Also, what is the name of the size small Fae that dip their hats in your blood and carry like dangerous weapons that are very ferocious? It's Red Cap.
It's all coming back full circle. It's coming back to the hat.
Red Cap.
Yeah, see, Derek said it in chat.
Oh, maybe that's what you're named after, Jess. Are you actually named after Bloody Fae? She's not answering.
I mean, that sure is what my name sounds like.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Could Red Cats beat Melendar? I don't know. Melendar is a giant automaton in a weird island in the Indigo Isles. I think that giant automaton may be more dangerous than a Red Cat.
I forgot about Melendar.
It was from one of our backers who pledged. I know. I'm telling the people who are watching, because they're like, "What's Melendar?" So one of their backers pledged extra and wanted an island, and they were like, okay, in this one part of the island there's this giant automaton who keeps these tiny little cute automaton, and I want to name it Melendar after Derek Molenda, but to troll him because he doesn't like cute things, but this automaton is actually protecting the cute like little constructs.
There you go. And that's now canon. So
that is what happened.
Derek is in our books.
Hey, Derek, have you played The Mind?
I hate The Mind.
You hate The Mind?
You just sit there.
Is it because you're bad at it?
No, because you have to play with other people, and then once you figure out the secret, it's just a boring game. And you sit there.
What do you mean the secret?
The secret is that if you all count in your head at the same cadence, then you know when to put down the card. So you'll be like,
okay, but if you're not cheating and you're not coordinating ahead of time,
that's not coordinating. You just everyone figures that out eventually. And plus, you don't say anything. It's like you just sit there.
You don't say anything.
It's boring.
All right, Derek. Derek, we'll duel in the mind.
Oh God, it's gonna be the
Wait,
most
how can
boring
you duel
duel
in the
That's
mind
the most
also?
boring
'Cause it's a
duel ever. You're
cooperative
all
game.
just staring at each other, not saying
right,
anything.
but somebody is the one who loses it for everybody, and that
Oh,
person
there
is
you
the
go.
loser of the mind.
Oh, well, can you play with two
Wait,
people?
but so here's my question.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, of
then,
course you can
Jess.
play with
As
two
a game
people.
designer, I've always got questions. Is the person who played the wrong card that shouldn't have been played the one who loses the mind?
Yes.
Okay, in that case, the winning strategy of competitive the mind is to never play any of your cards.
No, because if,
Then that makes it because
No,
then
no,
you're
no,
the one
no,
who
no.
withheld the card that should have been played, and the other person will then lose by playing their card, right?
well, maybe you're both losers then.
In competitive the mind, I'm not talking about the regular game, Steven.
No, I
know
think you
what
all
you're saying.
lose.
You're right about the regular game.
No, I
but
think
in the
you-
game that Jess
No,
described, where the loser is the one who played the first card that was out of order.
No, I think you
the
all
winning
lose.
strategy is to never play.
No, I
Okay,
think you
okay.
all lose or you all win.
But
Yeah,
I mean, that's
the
how it's
normal
normally played. Here's what
Yes.
we're gonna do.
Oh.
In our competitive mindscape, we will tally points based on the number of cards we have successfully played.
Okay.
It sounds boring. I'll come up with a better game for you guys to play.
No,
the
I'm gonna
broadswords.
duel Derek in my mindscape.
Oh God. We're all
We
gonna
said
just-
she was a psychic time traveler earlier in the show. Where do you think that psychics want to duel people? It's always in their mindscape. Every single game that has had mindscapes, I've always the psychics are like, I want to challenge
Derek.
this giant Otyug or this like owlbear to a mind duel where its strength means nothing.
Good job, Derek.
Yeah.
Does Mark even know what that's
Yeah,
from?
Derek's super chat is it is a strange game. The only winning move is not to play, which is obviously a quote from something because of the way Steven reacted.
War games.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I'm gonna start the Mark.
I could tell it was a quote because of the way you reacted.
Oh my God. I am gonna start the what do we call it? Mark's Movie Madness. That's it. Mark's Movie Madness, where we give Mark a weekly homework assignment to watch a movie, and he has to come back and then give his report on it. Because your lack of, and I know you don't like going to movie theaters, that's fine, but sit down, watch it with Linda, and I'll give you all good movies. I won't give you anything garbage. War Games is a classic. It's so good. And it's a beautiful slice of life of early 80s. It's really good. Actually, it's very interesting, and it holds up like surprisingly well. Man, I saw that in the theater, and I was like on the
I have
edge
a
of my
very
seat.
limited amount of extra time
Oh, I have
to
no
do
extra
things.
time.
But,
I have no extra.
but if you force me to do it, I will.
No, I'm not going to force you.
You said you were going to force me to do it, and that would be fine. Of the things I've been forced to do in the past, that would be
I'm not
like a
forcing
pretty
you.
good one.
I wouldn't force you, but if you, it
Okay,
would be
but
fun.
you could. He's your employee. You could pay
Well,
him to
sort of,
watch
but-
movies
Well,
on the
that's what
clock.
he's
Yes,
getting
if
at.
he
That's what he's
contracts me
getting
to
at.
watch the
I'm
movie
not
because of
gonna
his
do
part
that.
of the stream,
Yeah.
which like doing this stream and other things like that is part of my contract with him.
I'm
So
not
if it
doing
was
that.
Yeah.
a necessary thing because the stream was we were going to discuss Wargate, that's what I mean by it.
I know
not
what he
force
meant.
as in like
No,
twist
no,
my
no,
arm.
No, I'm not going
If it's necessary, I will watch it.
No, it's
and
not necessary.
I will try to give you a deep analysis of
No.
it. I took a Shakespeare and film class in college, and so I've taken a class that had film stuff in it. Not only that, but weirdly enough, my professor took my final paper and like wrote a book about it and asked the director of one of the films, is this thing that he said in this paper correct? And the director's like, yes, no one has ever seen that in there. It was very weird. So I am capable of
Humble
analyzing movies,
brag.
is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you don't need to analyze. You just need to.
I'm
if you
capable of
liked
doing it.
or
I just
not.
don't like to watch them.
All
No,
right,
I don't.
fair
I think
enough.
that was just that was probably an overall brag to try to establish that I'm not completely ignorant of like what a movie is and how it and like the elements
War
and themes
games.
that are in them. I just don't watch
No.
movies very often.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. I actually don't watch that many movies either now because they all suck. Like they're so bad.
reasonable.
They're
That's
really
reasonable.
bad. There's like I can get into that. Like there's movies now. There's reasons. A lot of it has to do with CGI and just the way directors now shoot movies because it's all done like with second units and third units and like support units and like because there's so much CGI, like they don't actually direct the movie. Like they direct parts of the movie, and then like very large parts are literally done by production houses and like FX houses, so they have nothing to do with the movie, and they just say what they want. It's like it's all outsourced. So movies are they're just not the same as they used to be. All right, I'm gonna leave you with
Derek sent a super chat, and I don't really understand it, but I'm assuming it's the name of an actress that I've never heard of.
Oh my god, you've never heard of Ali Sheedy? Did you never see The Breakfast Club? Oh,
I actually did. I just don't know the names of which of the ones was she? Was she Holly?
No, she was the one with the black hair, and she was the goth girl.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. Sure, I just don't know the names of actors and actresses very much.
I saw that in the theater too. That's how old I am, by the way.
See, but I actually did see The Breakfast Club. You managed to name a movie I'd seen.
Fair enough. I will give you all a movie that I saw, and I think a lot of people watching this stream. How about this? Let's do the Roll for Combat, the movie, where everyone watching can come back next week and we can talk about that movie. I'm going to give you a movie that I think is a masterpiece in comedy, that I love to beyond belief, and the more I watch it, the funnier it gets, that people will either love it or hate it. And it is called Bottoms. It came out about a year ago or 2 years ago. And just imagine, this will help you put it in a different frame of reference. Imagine it takes place on Earth, but not our Earth. It takes place on a planet Earth that is 98% the same as our Earth, but 2% is different. And it's really different. So when things happen in this version of Earth, that in our version of Earth, you'd be like, wouldn't people like go to jail for that? They're just like, like it's nothing to them. And if you think of it that way, you're going to be like, wow, this movie is great. It's really.
Oh, I've never heard of this movie,
Bottoms.
But
it looks so.
I have just
funny.
Googled it, and it is apparently about two girls who start a fight club to hook up with cheerleaders.
That is correct, but it's not that at all. And the lead.
Well, that's what. Look, I didn't want to read spoilers.
Oh, I know. But the lead.
Look like what is it about?
It's basically that. But the lead in it, there's two leads. One of them, she was in Saturday Night with my brother, and she's the one. I forgot her name, but she actually just read the Oscar nominations. So she's actually like one of the presenters, the hosts. So she's like an up-and-coming, she's a big up-and-coming comic. And then the other woman who's in it, she's in The Bear. And she's the sous chef in The Bear. And if she's really good in that. And if you know her, you'll be like, holy crap, because it's a comedy. And the funniest person in this movie, by far, hold on, is not who you think it is. It is...
Don't worry, it's definitely not who I think it is because it's an actor or actress from a 2023 movie.
Okay, Rachel Sennett. She's who plays PJ. The one who's the funniest one is Marshall Lynch. Marshall Lynch is in this movie. He's a professional football player. He's the funniest person in this entire movie. He's so funny. There's a new movie coming out that he's in too. Like he's transitioning to a movie star because he's really, really good at comedy. Anyhow, there's your homework. Bottoms. I promise you. All right, she wasn't saying almost fire, Ali Sheedy. You'll watch it, and I promise you, half of you are going to be like, "What the hell am I watching?" Just get into it. Just go with it. And if you go into it, you're going to say this movie is genius. It's actually, I think, genius. This movie, one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Period. It's like it's the new stage of comedy. Hard to explain. Anyhow, with that, Jess. What are you doing? What are you working on? Anything new that we should be looking out for you? Other than Leshy Dragons, which is coming like in a week or two?
Yeah, I mean, look forward to upcoming release Leshy Dragons. As far as what I'm working on actively at the moment, I absolutely cannot discuss that.
Oh, all right.
If you ever ask an author what they're working on and it's not for you, Steven, they will always
you
be
can
under
say what you're
NDA
working
100%
on.
of the time.
You're working on Figments.
That's true. That's true. That is a thing that I will write once I finish the
Other
thing that I may or may not be writing.
And why didn't we
I can't discuss.
Yes. Why didn't we have Jess?
She even only has her midway milestone due for us in a few months.
Well, we should have had Jess do Red Caps, which was a lost opportunity.
No, but see, she really wanted Figments.
Oh, that's true.
No, I trust Dr. Raccoon to do justice to the Red Caps.
Red Caps is done. I
He
didn't
has
even
them,
read it.
right?
It's done.
Yes,
I
there was a
didn't read it.
big fight over red
Yeah.
caps.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, Jess kind of slinked in, took figments. Nobody else was watching. Kind of showed a knife in case anybody else
Yeah.
wanted figments, and then walked off with them.
Well,
That's
you're going to have a
correct.
very
That's
hard
accurate.
bar because Toon is like my favorite RPG of all time, so I'm going to be watching that one very closely.
Well, Steven,
Jess.
you said that Swarm Blood was basically one of your favorite ones that we've ever done.
It is.
So it seems like
Mhm.
Jess is up to that challenge.
It is. Swarm Bloods is like,
Mhm.
I think, I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely one of the best. It's up there. It's really good. Like
So
really,
Derek
really
is
good.
maybe quoting something or a song or something.
The
He
song,
says, I
St.
can
Elmo's
climb
Fire.
the highest mountain, cross the wildest seal, can feel St. Elmo's fire burning in me, burning in me.
That's right. St. Elmo's Fire. It's a movie. The movie kind of sucks.
What is it? Wildest,
It's not a good
wildest
movie.
seal, or would it be wildest sea?
I don't know.
Like, is that a typo or not? I don't know. I don't know what this is from, so I
It's
just
from
read it
St. Elmo's
directly.
Fire.
Okay.
It has quote the Brat Pack. There was actually a very good. Oh, C and then I. He messed up.
Oh, it's a C and then an I. It's the wildest sea. I can feel
Okay,
St.
the
Elmo's
wildest
fire
sea I
burning
can
in me,
feel
burning in me.
burning
Okay.
in me. There is a documentary that just came out last year about the Brat Pack from St. Elmo's Fire that I strongly recommend, by the way, because it actually talks about. They actually interviewed themselves about what it was like to be in the Brat Pack in the 80s.
Fair enough.
See, I could just go on and on about movies.
Crossing the wildest sea and crossing the wildest seal are just so different, though.
Yes.
It's just like
Crossing
one of
the
them you're
wildest
traversing something, the other one you're
sea.
just making this animal angry and it's going ballistic.
Yeah, that movie does not hold up, by the way. So, anyhow, next week maybe we'll have Jess on, maybe we'll have Derek on, have you both been on yet? I still gotta get both of you
No.
on at the same time.
No, you've never coordinated having both of us on at the same time.
I have to.
There you go. We'll figure it out. We also have several other people who are looking to go on the show too, I think. So we'll figure out when that will happen.
Oh man,
Mhm.
I'm gonna get both of you on, and then I'm just gonna sit back and let you guys take over. I won't even do it. I won't even say a word. I'll be like, who knows? I'll make the topic Jess versus Derek fight mind battle. There we go. That's the topic.
And then everyone will watch us silently play the mind.
Exactly. You're silently playing the mind. I'm like, this is great radio. Great
What
radio.
we'll do is, here's what we'll do, Steven.
Or great video.
They will be silently playing the mind. Okay. They will not have audio of whatever we're saying while they're doing this, because we'll turn it off. Then you and
Are you
I
a
will
sports
be
commentator?
sports
Yes.
commenting. It's like, oh, you can see here that
It's actually not a
Jess
bad
is-
idea.
she's kind of looking in on that. We think she probably has like an 8 or 9 here. You can see that she's delaying.
Ugh.
But Derek's got his hand on the card. Now that might be that he has the 9 as well, or a 10. Oh, we see the 8s.
Hey, I can do this tabletop simulator. We can set this up. It will not be very hard to do. And then
No,
we can.
I don't think you can play the mind in tabletop simulator because so much of the mind is reading the other person's nonverbal
You have a
cues.
Zoom right here. You can look at his face.
What if the timing is off? There's so many things.
That's
I
you
don't
and
know.
your Canadian internet that has bad timing. We have solid internet here in the States.
I think what I've learned from this, Stephen, is that Jess's psychic powers don't work across that great of a distance.
Oh, it's one of those.
They need to be. We're learning the limitations if we need to avoid her ability to
I
predict
see.
Monopoly games and other things like that and steal trade secrets. You just need to stay away. This distance is far enough.
I can't fucking believe that Monopoly thing is real.
It blows my mind that, like, because
You said it, and I was like,
I
thought you knew that was a real thing. And I'm like, yeah, that came out.
It was like the most bizarre thing. It
Came
was a
out.
perfect example of something that would never happen. And then,
And I was like, yeah, what about it? You're talking about something like it
Jess,
doesn't
you're being sent to
exist.
super jail for stealing their idea.
Super jail.
Oh no.
Yes, in super jail. All right, I gotta go. I gotta go feed my dog.
All
We
right,
gotta
take care,
jump on.
everybody.
Wait. I want to
All right.
come on the show. Interview Steven, run a test of industry game show between. Oh, dude, I'd be terrible at the industry game shows like that. I'm not good at that. Would be. Well, it depends what the questions are, but like the one where they had like questions about Pathfinder. like Mark destroyed everyone. It wasn't even close. I can't do that. But if it's something about
Which one? Oh, you mean the one that
was it in the
Rise of the Rule
pre-release?
Lords did?
Yeah, that one was impossible. I didn't know any of the answers, and you knew every answer. I'm not good with the
it was still a
rules like
close
that.
one because he did some bonus rounds that were
okay.
buzzer races where everybody knew the answer because it was like a picture or like
right.
some kind of Lost Omens thing.
Yeah.
And Luis was good at the buzzer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, hobby and TTRPG history, that stuff I know very well. So that I can do. Like rules, I suck at rules. Which is really weird because I know rules when I know them, but I can, like, if you ask me what the rule is in a specific situation, I can tell you. But if you ask me what the rule is out of the situation, no idea. I couldn't tell you. But if I'm in the moment, I can figure it out.
No, that game was the one where it was like, is this...
No, I couldn't do it.
There was like, is this from the original rules or
First
was it
edition,
like errata or was it
or
like...
third edition? It was like errata first edition, second edition, or the playtest rules. I was like, come on, that's impossible.
Playtest rules, second edition, but it was errata and it was not originally like that. That was so hilarious.
That's funny. That's very funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we had Liz, but Liz was at a disadvantage because some of the errata came up after they left to go to WoTC. And so
there was like 100 questions. Mark got like 98 of them right. And like the next closest person got like 40. Yeah, it was like it wasn't even close. He destroyed
but in the final
them.
score, it was close because Luis got a lot of the bonus points.
Okay, Luis. It was kind of disgusting after a while watching.
On the main rounds, I was doing well, but I got lucky a few times.
All right, closest. I gotta go feed my dog.
All right, take care, everybody. So until next time, and who knows who's going to be on the show then?
No one knows.
If you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat. Bye, everybody.